a couple of kayakers earlier, so definitely 24 that we've seen just in this area. But then there's a bunch of spectators even in front of me just watching this area, because I'm sure to a lot of people that live here, this is quite the sight, something that they've never seen before.
Yeah, well, we hope that water recedes sometime soon. Chelsea Torres there live for us north of Tampa. Chelsea, thanks. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, Andrew.
All right, great stuff there from Chelsea Torres. We've been relying on her reporting all throughout the course of the last 24 hours here. And just remember, want to reiterate this, if you are feeling charitable, if you have been watching some of these scenes over the last 2 weeks in the wake of Helene and now Milton, please donate. Make a donation to the Red Cross to help some of these people affected by both Helene and Milton. You can do that by scanning that QR code there on your screen, or you can visit the website redcross.org/FoxForward. So in the meantime, we are at the top of a new hour. It's 3 o'clock here on the West Coast, 6 o'clock there in Tampa, Florida. Fox 13 is in their 6 p.m. Eastern broadcast with all of Milton's impacts. Let's watch.
And look what's still happening. That is a boat from Florida Fish and Wildlife still rescuing people, pulling people out of their homes and taking them through this high water that is still several feet deep and onto high dry ground. And we saw that this morning also with the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. This is a densely populated area. There are a lot of people here, and a lot of them still need to be rescued. We were riding along on an airboat with the sheriff when deputies spotted a 14-year-old boy this morning who was clinging to a broken piece of fence in a neighborhood off of Fowler Avenue. That is where we still are right now. He was clearly struggling to stay afloat. Deputies and the sheriff pulled him onto their boat and brought him back to his apartment, which unfortunately was also flooded. This came after an incredibly busy morning. Emergency crews rescued more than 130 disabled residents at an assisted living facility off of Fowler. Some of those folks had been moved from another facility in Bradenton prior to Hurricane Milton, only to get trapped by rising water here in Tampa. 4 feet of water in that facility. Here's how the sheriff described the situation this morning.
I've never seen flooding like this. Never. To drive through here, or I should say, go through here in an airboat and see cars underwater, to see individuals on the second floor because their first floor is flooded, standing there waiting for it to subside. This is a neighborhood that has very little, and the very little that they had is gone.
Yeah, that boy who was rescued told deputies he was staying at a friend's house just down the street during the storm and was trying to get back home. Didn't realize how deep the water was, and then he was trapped. The sheriff says it's a good thing they found him when they did, and that's the case for so many people who live in this neighborhood who have lost everything. So many streets, homes, apartments, condos, cars, you name it, businesses in this community are destroyed. Now we want to show you back out here live with the images. We're seeing this boat with these folks who live down here is getting closer and closer. And like I said, this is what we've been seeing throughout the day. Right now it's Florida Fish and Wildlife. Earlier today, it was the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office and Hillsborough County Fire Rescue. They were doing these same type of rescues. And there are so many communities all throughout Hillsborough County that are dealing with this same type of thing, Mark, where there are people who they still are trying to figure out what they have left, what they've lost, what they can still salvage. And folks in this community, I mean, that water is as deep as the eye can see. It goes as far as the eye can see. And it's hard to tell what, if anything, can be salvaged at this point, and they won't know probably for days maybe.
Aaron, that's just staggering, especially seeing what's going on behind you right now. And I know you mentioned that. I was just going to ask you about that because in some of that other video, it looks like it goes on for several blocks, if not more. Can you give us a sense from where you are? I know you don't have an aerial view, obviously, right now, but how big of an area are we talking about where you are that's saturated?
Well, I mean, if you're familiar with the university area of Tampa, we're talking from Fowler all the way over to Fletcher. I mean, this is probably at least a mile radius here, if not more than that. I mean, we were on the airboat with the sheriff's office this morning for at least a half an hour, going from one block to the next, to the next, to the next. And you saw in that video how deep the water was. I mean, that 14-year-old boy was probably neck deep in water there. And again, like I said, Mark, this water hasn't receded at all seemingly, since this morning. There are cars where you can still basically only see the tops of them that are still almost completely submerged in water. So it's hard to tell when this water is going to see where it's going to go, because at this point I just don't think it has anywhere to go. So this is going to take a long time for all this water to go away.
There's so much debris out there from all that wind, from all the trees. I would imagine all those storm drains are just absolutely clogged like corks. So it's going to take a bit to probably free up some of them and get that water down. That is something else. Aaron Mesmer, we'll let you get back to it. Just incredible flooding there behind you.
Great work, too, saving that boy. My goodness. 18 inches of rain. That's why we've got so much flooding. 101 mile-an-hour gusts. That is a lot to handle. More than 400,000 are still without power in Pinellas. Close to 150,000 of those outages are in St. Pete. And while Milton caused damage in St. Pete overnight, the good news is both the sewer treatment plants made it through the storm just fine. And the city, of course, have to turn the tap water off to fix a water main break. But the water's back on tonight, but you do need to boil it before using it. And by now, after just seeing that video, if you didn't already know, the roof of the trop is in tatters. And Fox 13's Kaylee Tracy has reaction tonight from the Rays and from fans that she met across the street at Ferg's.
Ferg's Sports Bar opened at 4 p.m. today, offering warm meals, a spot for people to charge their phones, and a spot for the community to come together after the storm. Ferg's, of course, just steps away from Tropicana Field that lost its roof during Milton. Officials say 14 people were inside when it happened, mostly Trop employees and security. Thankfully, no one was hurt. And a few streets away, a crane fell from the 400 Central construction site downtown onto an office building. No one was hurt there either. The city building official says it's the developer and contractor's responsibility to remove the crane, and they have liability insurance to protect any surrounding buildings. They'll have to bring in another crane to remove those parts, and it will probably take a few days. St. Pete Mayor Ken Welch says crews have been assessing damage across the city all day, and there are a lot of downed trees and power lines and a lot of people without power.
This was a storm that intensified quickly and gave us very little time to prepare. But we made it through the storm, we started the recovery, and we will be successful. I ask that everyone continue to be patient and lean on each other during this time. Be a good neighbor, offer help where you can, and know that we will come back from this challenge stronger and more resilient than ever before.
The Rays released a statement saying they're devastated by the damage across the city and say it'll take a few days to assess the true condition of the trop. St. Pete police say 2 people died during the storm. 1 was medical related, and they're waiting for the cause of death on the other. In St. Pete, Kaylee Tracy, Fox 13 News.
Kaylee, thanks. You just hate to hear about those deaths, but as residents here continue picking up the pieces, businesses and hospitals are also cleaning up today. Very, very busy for them. Fox 13's Ariel Placencia is live in Tampa with more on this. Hi there, Ariel. I know business owner, homeowner, whoever you are, many of us are finding themselves without power right now. How are they doing?
Yeah, Mark, well, you're exactly right. And this is one example why. You'll see we've got tons of down power lines here at the intersection of Swan and Lincoln. In fact, it's, not safe and pretty dangerous. So TPD's out here making sure that nobody can come through. And this, of course, is due to falling trees and big branches. We've just seen such a wide range of damage caused by Hurricane Milton, whether you're a resident or you're a business owner.
It's kind of unbelievable until you get out and start walking around.
This is what's left of the Tampa family business Pilgrim Permacoat.
Think about how it was on Monday when you get to work and everything's fine, and then you show up to this and it's a little unreal.
Thankfully, no one was hurt. But Hurricane Milton's heavy rain and tropical storm force winds were so powerful, the storm managed to shear off the side of this office building in Palmetto Beach, exposing all 3 levels and everything inside.
Prepared as much as we could, got some important stuff out of there, but I mean, obviously this is something you can't really plan for. We were expecting, maybe a couple windows out, not the whole wall missing. So
meanwhile, other damage across the city of Tampa included large trees blocking roadways, as well as downed power lines and flooded intersections. However, Tampa General Hospital tells us they managed to avoid all of this, and they escaped any damage.
We had power all the way through, no water. Just in really, really great shape.
The hospital says it had generators ready to go, but didn't need them. And their 9-foot-tall aquafence stood strong.
No water in the hospital. It stood up, did its job.
The aquafence stretches around the entire TGH facility on Davis Islands. It's designed to hold back a 15-foot storm surge, and it was successful in protecting the hospital from Hurricane Milton and Helene.
Really, really happy about how it worked.
So really great to hear that the hospital's okay, aquafence worked, and they have power. Now, for the rest of us and our homes, I can tell you that driving around Tampa today, we did see crews. They are out here working very hard to get those lights turned back on. But, Mark, it is going to take some time because so many intersections in our city look like the one you see behind me.
Just so much. Everywhere you turn, we see an intersection that looks like that. So definitely going to need some patience. Ariel Placencia, Live Force, thanks.
Well, this is our first look at St. Armand's Key in Sarasota from our camera at Plymouth Harbor. You can see here roads covered in sand. They dealt with some surge and a long line of first responders, county vehicles, and bucket trucks headed on to St. Armand's there. Now, the road, you can see it is still flooded, and so is St. Armand's Circle as well. Wow.
A lot of businesses down there for sure as well, because it's a residential area, it's mixed use, and it is low. They do get their fair share of flooding, but I think you're seeing areas where there's sand in the roads we've never seen before, and the numbers are around an 8-foot surge, right? Is that what we're hearing?
That's what we were just looking at, around 8 foot. You know, they dealt with the surge. We didn't have the surge. So, yeah, you can see that's going to take some time.
Yeah, they are resilient. We know that they will dry out and get back going again, back out on their feet. So we're anxious to help them and make sure they do. Meantime, it was a 1-2 punch for folks in Sarasota County. That's where Milton made landfall, right on the heels, of course, of Helene.
We are going to head there next to see the damage. And as we head to break, we want to leave you with some photos from just some of the aftermath of Hurricane Milton. We'll be right back.
All right, we do thank Fox 13 in Tampa for all they've done as they have gotten us through this storm here on Live Now from Fox as well. Great partners down there tracking all of Milton's impacts. But in the meantime here, we do have a lot of Live Now looks going on. We're about to take a quick commercial break. Afterward, we'll be checking in with some of our reporters still down there in Florida here. But remember, we are just weeks away from the presidential election. And we do have some of these campaign events that we are monitoring for later tonight. This is going to be a town hall with Ohio Senator J.D. Vance. That's in Greensboro, North Carolina. And from what I read, from what has been reported, this is going to be moderated by NASCAR champion Danica Patrick. So we're going to have that for you a little bit later on live. We also have yet another campaign event. Former President Barack Obama stumping on behalf of the Harris-Walz ticket. He'll be doing that later today there in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Of course, the election could hinge on Pennsylvania. As you know, Pennsylvania's electoral college votes are the eye on the prize for both the Trump and Harris campaigns here. And we also have still this live press conference happening there in New York City at one of these subway stops. I believe this is at 42nd Street. Mayor Eric Adams talking about subway safety, but I believe he's taking some questions right now. Remember, he's still facing calls to resign after he was indicted about 2 weeks ago. Let's keep listening.
I'm sorry? Permanent. It's listen. Every permanency should depend on success. We believe you do pilot projects and pilot programs to determine is it successful. Some people get wedded, and if it's not being successful, we should not continue it. These are taxpayers' dollars, and this is a taxpayer's time. And so, if it's success, we will do an analysis and we will expand. But it has to be proven to be success, like we're seeing success in Scout. Our early numbers are showing the number of people we interact with, the number of people we got services for. We're seeing success. Now we have to sustain that success. Yes, and we want to see. Manhattan is the best testing ground because so many people come to Manhattan to stay on the subway system for whatever reason. They feel as though there's services that are here in Manhattan, access to other items they need. Manhattan has always been a magnet for those who are dealing with temporary or permanent homelessness situations. So we're going to start here, and then we're going to identify from our inner line exercises, Coney Island and other places, to see about the expansion. But this is the place that we have to prove that is correct.
Okay, just wanted to let you listen into a little bit of this. This has been a key story here on Live Now that we've been following there out of New York City. Some of the scandals that have plagued not only Adams' administration at City Hall there, but also the New York City Public Schools and the NYPD as well. You saw there Tom Donlin, the acting NYPD commissioner, standing right next to Adams at this press conference. There were reports today that he would be stepping down soon, not even a month into the job there. So Fox 5 New York reporter Morgan McKay, she's on hand. We'll maybe check in with her later about what Adams said there. All right, 3:15 here on the West Coast, 6:15 there in Florida. Another update on Hurricane Milton when we come back. And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. We have been seeing just incredible scenes coming out of Florida after Hurricane Milton made himself known. And so we want to get just a little bit more updates with some of our reporters standing by there. In Tampa specifically, including our friend Fox's Rebecca Castor. She joins me. Rebecca, what are you seeing? Obviously, the sun's up, and you've been down there on the ground for a couple of hours. What's it look like?
Hey, Andrew. Well, the baseball stadium, Tropicana Field, I'm sure you've seen the images already, but this is really some of the most shocking damage that we are seeing from Hurricane Milton. I'll give you a better look at it here from our viewpoint. The roof was pretty much all blown off last night at the height of the storm. We had wind speeds here in St. Petersburg. That's where Tropicana Field is, home of the Tampa Bay Rays. The wind speeds hit over 100 miles per hour last night. So this roof didn't stand a chance up against those wind speeds. We felt them ourselves as we were going live throughout the storm. So today, you know, these weather impacts, the rain and the wind from Milton is gone, but the impacts and the risks from it, it's not over yet, Andrew. Milton is now heading out over the Atlantic after making a direct hit on Florida, leaving behind significant damage. At the height of the storm, more than 3 million customers were without power, and crews are working hard to get the lights back on.
But the major concern at the moment is flooding, with multiple water rescues continuing in low-lying areas.
She's been rescued. We just did this a couple years ago, so we're kind of used to it. But I was worried about her because she has early dementia.
Winds over 100 miles an hour were reported here in St. Petersburg. The storm was so powerful, it even ripped the roof off Tropicana Field, home of the Tampa Bay Rays. And further downtown, a construction crane collapsed, leaving a gaping hole in a luxury condo building.
It's a big concern. In Tampa, here just across the bay, we have 2 cranes, and we wanted to get them down, but there just wasn't enough time.
Multiple deaths have been reported so far, and the rescue mission is still underway. But local officials say the state largely avoided a worst-case scenario, thanks in part to one of the biggest evacuation efforts in Florida history.
It's really sped up the process for search and rescue for our fire department, which will allow us to get our residents back on island.
So, Andrew, you might be able to hear the buzzing of a helicopter behind me. This area was going to be used as a staging site for thousands of first responders that were coming to the state. They're still using it to land helicopters, but obviously all of those people that were going to stay here at Tropicana Field, that's no longer the plan. The good news is, though, that all of those teams, they were not in Tropicana Field during Milton's landfall. So there are no injuries to report from this incident here, Andrew.
Yeah, Rebecca, that's such good news. Rebecca Castor there live for us outside the Trop there in Tampa. Rebecca, thanks. We'll check in soon. All right, in the meantime here, we do want to continue with our coverage there of Hurricane Milton's impacts. Also, I wanted to put up for you on the screen, remember, if you are feeling charitable, you can scan that QR code there. You want to make a donation to help so many of these people impacted not only by Hurricane Milton, but remember, Hurricane Helene made landfall 2 weeks ago today. And so the communities there, especially in parts of southern Georgia and western North Carolina, they are still picking up the pieces as well. So you can scan that QR code, or you can visit that website there, redcross.org/FoxForward, if you want to make a donation and help. So in the meantime here, we do have more experts, more reporters standing by to help us make sense now, 24 hours almost after Milton made landfall, including our friend there, former FEMA official Mark Naveau. He joins me. Mark, thanks for being with us. Before we get into our conversation, just can't thank you enough. You've been providing such valuable insight throughout, both of these storms, Helene and Milton here. The sun's now up, Mark. What more do we know? What have you seen? Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said they avoided the worst-case scenario. What did he mean by that?
Well, I think we were talking about catastrophic storm surge. You remember Katrina was a Cat 3, but a 16 to 20-foot storm surge. This storm, Milton, came in as a Cat 3, but the storm surge was probably in the 8 to 12-foot range. So the good news for all this, less families, less homes, less businesses destroyed. So from a catastrophic standpoint, it's good news. But what I'm seeing, and I think we didn't anticipate, is some of the far-reaching impacts, in particular the tornadoes.
Yeah, the tornadoes that were spawned almost all the way on the Atlantic coast in counties over there like Palm Beach County and Martin County and others, especially though there were some tornadoes reported in Sarasota County. They had so many tornado warnings yesterday. The National Hurricane Center, with their latest advisory and update, has this, that the storm surge and the tropical storm warnings for Milton have been discontinued. They say that is the last advisory. So it came and went quite quickly, Mark. Milton is out of there. He's well off into the Atlantic. And just to give you a sense of some of the flooding here, that's Chelsea Torres' shot there. North of Tampa, you see there, Mark, people waiting in the floodwaters. Obviously, we heard from officials in the run-up to Milton making landfall that that is not advised there. All right, Mark, let's talk about what some of these impacted residents there have at their disposal. What is available to them right now, 24 hours after the fact here? Say if their business was damaged, if they can't return to their home, if their car is waterlogged, what can they get from the federal government, Mark?
As soon as the president declares a major presidential disaster declaration, and I'm not sure if that's been done yet. If it hasn't, it'll be a short period of time. And what that will do is it will allow people in the affected disaster zone to be able to register either through their mobile, their phone, or a computer. I recognize there's not electricity in some of those areas, but soon they'll have cellular on wheels coming into those areas to give you cell signal. But once you register, that will determine, they'll ask you a number of questions. Do you have housing, etc.? And the $750 is immediate. That can get into your bank account right away. But they'll also ask you about, do you have lodging? Do you need temporary lodging? Do you have medical care? Do you need assistance with regards to, breastfeeding, diaper kits, meals, all kinds of, quote, immediate needs. That's what they're going to talk to you about. Then eventually down the road, an inspector will come out, take a look at your property, and they'll start you in that process with insurance, etc.
Okay, so Mark, over the last 2 weeks, there's been this back and forth in the national conversation about this dollar amount, $750 here. Help us break some of these myths about that dollar amount. What is that intended for? And is that all some of these impacted people get from FEMA?
No, not at all.
Okay.
The idea behind that was just to get them money right away for immediate help before registration. And so once they register, they'll get lodging, etc. But that was really to fit that short term. Maybe you need to stay for 1 or 2 nights right away.
Okay, so Mark, obviously we're not at the end yet of Atlantic hurricane season. I believe it ends November 1st. So there are potentials for even more hurricanes. How will FEMA handle if that is the case, if there is yet another major hurricane? I mean, it's October 10th. This is late in the season, but it's not over yet, is it?
No, it's not over yet. And I'm not so sure we have a season, much like California wildfires. We used to talk about a season. Now we're talking about year round. So right. I'm not quite there with regards to hurricanes, but certainly we know that there's a potential. I think there's some storms being watched by the National Hurricane Center. So we don't know, fingers crossed, nothing will come in, but it will present a challenge for the agencies. Now, you notice today, what is going well are the rescues, and that's important to people to understand. Again, through some of the discussions, we talk about political, but remember, it's the local entities, police, fire, rescue crews that are in there doing work along with urban search and rescue. This state's coordinating. Governor DeSantis' administration's done a wonderful job getting programs up and running, and the federal government comes in to help them with that too. So it's a 3-tiered system, everybody working together to help.
All right, Mark Naveau, can't thank you enough for all the insight you've been providing, not only just over this week, but the last 2 weeks, Mark, and we'll check in soon. Thanks so much.
You're welcome, Andrew. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, in the meantime here, let's take a quick commercial break as we near the bottom of the hour. We do want to spend the next 30 minutes. Don't you worry. We're not going anywhere away from some of Milton's aftermath and the stories we're going to continue to tell here, but there are some other headlines we do want to get to that have broken today. We'll have a lot of them when we come back. And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft, 3:30 here on the West Coast, 6:30 there on the East Coast. We do want to just devote the bottom half of this hour to some of the other major top headlines of today. Remember, we are monitoring some of these live pictures, these political events. We're just weeks away from the presidential election contest. RNC Chairman Michael Whatley speaking, introducing Ohio Senator J.D. Vance at this town hall there in the Tar Heel State, North Carolina, a battleground there. This is taking place in Greensboro, North Carolina. So we'll have that live when it begins. We also have this live picture there in Pittsburgh. We're told that former President Barack Obama will be out on the campaign trail stumping on behalf of the Harris Walz ticket. Now, in the meantime, we do have some breaking news right now that is coming to us out of the state of Colorado. One person dead, nearly a dozen others trapped at the Molly Kathleen gold mine just outside of Colorado Springs. So we have a statement in right now from Colorado Governor, the Democrat Jared Polis. He says this: I've spoken to the Teller County Sheriff and County Commissioners and will stay in touch through the course of this rescue effort. He says the state is assisting Teller County in sending resources to rescue those inside the mine. So he says, additionally, the state has personnel on site and more en route to assess the situation and provide on-the-ground support to local authorities. We just got a press conference in. It just wrapped up live there. We do have it from the very beginning. This is a breaking story right now. One fatality. Multiple people are trapped at this mine outside of Colorado Springs here. So law enforcement officials, like I said, they just wrapped this press briefing. We're going to start it from the very beginning. Here's what they had to say in this update.
Thank you to Jared Polis, to our governor. He called probably within 10 minutes of our initial call. Senator Baisley happened to be with us for a hearing, offering anything he could. So they are obviously the experts. In the end, the decision will probably be our incident commanders, and we take that very seriously too. So, and then as far as the mental health piece of it, just to reiterate that, our public health department is down there right now. There are some children involved. So there's lots that's going on, but there's a lot of stuff on social media. I'd ask for you just to ignore that, get your information here, and I appreciate you guys covering the story. Senator Baisley, sir?
Yeah, thank you. My name is Mark Baisley. I'm honored to represent all of Teller County. Really, a lot of this area around here. Yeah, just happened to be right down the street here in Cripple Creek in a meeting with the county commissioners, all three of them, and when we received this news. I chair the Emergency Management Sustainability Task Force, so our goal is to try to make sure that when we call on these folks, because we all expect it, don't we? We dial 911 when there's an emergency, and we expect the right kind of people to show up with the right equipment and well-trained and to get there fast. And we saw that today. I want to extend a big applause and thank you to Sheriff Mikesell, because look what he is doing here, responding immediately and organizing and commanding this event, and all the emergency crew that came from across the state. So yes, and a big thanks to Governor Polis, who was with us immediately and committed some resources as well. So thanks to all of them. They're doing a great job. Let's just keep all those family members in our prayers, because if you're down there 1,000 feet and wondering what's going on, right now is a good time to lift them up.
Absolutely. And Sheriff, one last thing. You talked about how you would like to have the elevator operational again to get these people out. You said that you do have a plan B and you do have a plan C. Can you go into that if that were the same circumstances of you guys would have to kind of shift?
Yep.
What that would look like?
We do have Colorado Springs Fire Department here. They're 1,000 feet down. That means it's a long rope trip, right? If we have to, we can bring people up on those ropes, but it also subjects those first responders now to the threat and endangerment of doing so, because it's still you're dropping a long ways in a tunnel, right? So we want to make sure the tunnel's safe. We want to make sure the shaft is in good order. We want to make sure all those things are working well. My druther is that we get everybody up through the elevator system, right? Because sitting in a harness from 1,000 feet down coming up is not easy. So that's our plan B. Plan C they're working on. I'm going to get a briefing on it here shortly. But that's really where we're at. We believe that the elevator will be intact and able to do so, but I want to make sure it's perfectly safe before we do so. And once that happens, then we'll be able to bring them up. And I'll be honest with you, I want to give you all the pertinent information and what you need so that you have everything. So as soon as we have more information, we'll call another one of these so that you can get that. My hope that we can get all the people down in the shaft that are really going on, and then I can explain to them what actually occurred. because, you know, they really don't have an idea that we have more of an issue up top than what they're being told is the elevator. And really that's because I want to keep people calm, because I can't get them out until I can get something down there.
And how many people who are down there are like who work in the mine or are familiar with it?
We have one person from the family mining operation that's down there with them, keeping everyone calm. And what I'm told is that's a former mine rescue personnel, so he has some knowledge about these things. So really what his job is right now is just to keep people calm.
Yeah, and how are you communicating with them?
So we have communication down in the bottom through radios.
Okay.
So we're hearing and they'll let us know if something's occurring, but that's really where we're at right now.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Just really quick, I just wanted to clarify. So you said there were 2 miners. Are they a part of the groups that's been rescued? Do you know if there's any others as far as that are down there still?
So again, this is a tourism industry.
Sure.
They're not miners. These are folks like you and I that go down there to see what's happening in a real mine, to get an experience. So that's why they're down there at this point. But thank you for the question so I could clarify.
No, I think that was just a slip of tongue. I know they're obviously tourists. I guess it was a question he asked earlier. There was the 2 children. So those are already people that are out.
They're already out, yes.
Okay.
And I will tell you, because we've seen a lot on social media that there's a report that the mine has collapsed. That is not the case, right? The mine has not collapsed. It is stable at this point for what we know. So if I find out differently, I'll be more than happy to get you that information.
Real quick, how did you get those initial 11?
Running through the elevator system.
Okay.
We don't know, though, because of the damage that the elevator sustained, whether that would contribute to something failing again. So that's one of the reasons we want to make sure that the engineers and the state is sending us an elevator expert to identify if the elevator's safe. So that's really where we're at with it.
And again, to clarify, the Colorado Springs Fire Department is already down at the bottom currently?
No.
Okay.
So there's no one else down at the bottom, because we don't want to risk moving anything or putting something in an environment that we're not quite sure of yet, right? So once I get that information, we'll be able to move forward with more information for you, but really to hopefully move people out of that area. All right, thank you, folks.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so we are hearing there from law enforcement. This is in Teller County, Colorado there. After now we have learned that 10+ tourists are trapped in this destination, this former gold mine. And just to clarify, you heard the law enforcement official there clarify, these aren't actually gold miners. These are tourists who have visited this mine to get a 1-hour-long tour. And there was some type of an equipment malfunction there. That is why some of these tourists have been trapped, one of whom has died. They confirmed that there. This is the statement from Governor Jared Polis in Colorado, saying he's spoken to the Teller County Sheriff and county commissioners. He will stay in touch through the course of this rescue effort. He says the state is assisting Teller County in sending resources to rescue those inside the mine there. So that is what Governor Polis's office is telling us. He says this: we will do everything possible and assist the county to ensure a speedy and safe resolution of the situation. Now, they're trapped in the Molly Kathleen mine. It's a tourist destination which allows visitors to descend 1,000 feet into the earth. Visitors are able to visit the underground mine for an hour-long tour and witness, quote-unquote, gold veins in their natural state. That's according to the mine's website. Now, the sheriff's office said the mine did not collapse, and the Colorado Springs Fire Department, this is very, very near Colorado Springs, they have crews responding to rescue the trapped tourists there. So they said as well that there are several heavy rescue units working at the scene. Now, remember, you heard there, some people have already been rescued, but there are people still trapped. But unfortunately, we learned that there is one fatality due to this equipment malfunction there in Teller County, not too far from Colorado Springs. So wanted to make sure we got that story in. That story was literally breaking as we speak. That's what we do here, live, raw, and unfiltered. In the meantime, though, we just want to transition very briefly here. Live picture there at the White House, of course. We are just weeks away from the presidential election, and there's going to be a town hall tonight in Greensboro, North Carolina. moderated by NASCAR champion Danica Patrick. J.D. Vance will be taking questions from Patrick and the audience there in the Tar Heel State. But there's also going to be a town hall today with both Vice President Harris and her running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz here. Well, Harris just touched down in Phoenix. She's taking questions still on the tarmac. Let's bring it back to the beginning. Here's what she had to say. We'll see what she commented on as she's still speaking live.
Hi, I wanted to just say it's been great to be back in Las Vegas. I've been here so many times over the years, and this has been a good trip. I had some good time to meet with the Culinary Union members, who, of course, are part of the backbone of this great city. And I guess by contrast, my opponent, Donald Trump, yet again has trashed another great American city when he was in Detroit, which is just a further piece of evidence on a very long list of why he is unfit to be president of the United States. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions y'all have.
Madam Vice President, you talked a lot about it being a stark contrast in this election, yet it's still pretty close, and you talked to a number of undecided voters. What is your message to them? Are you surprised that there are so many who still say they're undecided? And what would you want them to know about what you believe is that stark contrast?
It's an election for President of the United States, and I intend to earn every vote, and that's why I'm here in Nevada, why I'm on my way to Arizona, why I'm traveling the country, to talk with folks, to listen with them, just as I've been doing during this visit here to Las Vegas. And there are a lot of issues that people deserve to hear about, including, for example, my plan on what we're going to do to build an opportunity economy in a way that will bring down prices, but also invest in our small businesses, invest in our entrepreneurs, and invest in American industries. So this is a campaign, and it is only right that we earn the vote in order to win what is one of the most important, if not the most important office in our land.
And when you say stark contrast, what do you believe is stark?
Contrast, reporting came out suggesting that Donald Trump has a private citizen may have had multiple phone calls with Vladimir Putin. Were you aware of those calls and what the response to them?
I've heard that reporting, and let me tell you, that on top of the further reporting, which is that during the height of the pandemic, Donald Trump, as President of the United States, secretly sent COVID test kits to Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, an adversary, at a time when here in this town and across our country, people were dying by the hundreds. People were scrambling, trying to find COVID tests, and the president of the United States secretly sent a bunch for the personal use of the president of Russia. We have so many examples of the fact that Donald Trump does not understand the importance of being president of the United States and commander-in-chief, whether it be what he does full-time in demeaning members of our military, calling them suckers and losers, referring to a great American hero from the state I'm about to visit, who was a prisoner of war, as somehow undeserving of his admiration because he said he got caught. We have examples of Donald Trump just constantly admiring dictators and autocrats, saying he wants to be a dictator on day one. Let me tell you something. That's the sign of the weakness of character, that you would seek favor and flattery from dictators and put their needs over the needs of the American people. And what more clear, most recent example can we have of that than getting COVID tests to the president of Russia when the people of America were dying every day and in need of those tests?
Madam Vice President, comment on the airstrikes in Lebanon. Nearly 2 dozen people have been killed. There was also some firing on UN peacekeepers there.
I'll say that what I've been saying about this, we have got to reach a ceasefire, both as it relates to what's happening in Lebanon and, of course, Gaza. We are working around the clock in that regard. But we need these wars to end, and we've got to definitely de-escalate what is happening in the region, and we're working on that.
I
have a question. As a Latina, I want to know, what do you have to tell Latinos like me who hear Donald Trump saying that our genes are bad, that we are bad for the country? I would like to know what you have to say to those Latinos who are undecided and want to know what you think about that rhetoric about us.
I think that, to your point, Donald Trump has shown himself to be someone who thrives on trying to divide us as a nation. and demean people, call people names. And that's not the sign of the character in someone that we want as President of the United States. We have so much more in common than what separates us as Americans. And it is, I think, in the best interest of everyone to have a leader who measures their strength not based on who they beat down, but on who they lift up. And that's the kind of president I intend to be. Thank you all.
Okay, so just a correction here. Vice President Harris, she is taking off from Las Vegas, traveling to Phoenix for a town hall with her running mate. So she took a few questions there, quite at length on the tarmac, about her opponent, former President Donald Trump. You heard her right off the bat say, "I heard Donald Trump trashed another American city." This is what she was referring to. Donald Trump was speaking today in Detroit on the economy. He said this, quote, "You want to know the truth? It'll be like Detroit. Our whole country will end up being like Detroit if she's elected president. We're not going to let her do that to this country. We're not going to let it happen." Also commenting on the new book by legendary journalist Bob Woodward titled War. In that book, there are reports that former President Trump sent COVID-19 testing kits to Vladimir Putin. Also some reporting in that book to suggest that Trump spoke to Vladimir Putin at least 7 times after he left the White House on the phone there. So some bombshell reporting from Bob Woodward's new book. All right, in the meantime here, let's take a quick commercial break. I'm Andrew Kraft. We have a lot more top headlines left to get to. Don't worry, we'll get back into some of Hurricane Milton and his impacts in the next hour. We also have some of these political events happening all across the country. But when we come back, we're going out to New York City. The hip-hop mogul, Sean Diddy Combs, appeared in court today. We'll tell you what was said and what was done in 2 minutes. And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kleins. Well, a May 5th trial date, it was set today for hip-hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs to face sex trafficking charges. We have a trial date in this case here. Fox News correspondent Alexis McAdams has more from New York.
Heckled as they arrived, the mom and kids of Sean Diddy Combs arrived to support the disgraced hip-hop mogul during his latest court hearing in New York City on Thursday. It was the first time Diddy appeared before this judge who will preside over his criminal trial. That trial now expected to start in May to give both sides enough time to go over the vast amount of evidence in this case, especially as prosecutors warn in court their investigation is far from over.
How's he doing? He's doing fine. He had his family here today to support him.
Diddy's been locked up for nearly a month now. He's facing sex trafficking and racketeering conspiracy charges for allegedly using his cash and fame to physically and sexually abuse women for more than a decade. The 54-year-old has pled not guilty to those charges. This week, Combs' attorney filed another appeal trying to get the rapper out on bail. This after a proposed $50 million bail package was rejected over concerns that Diddy is a danger to the community and could tamper with witnesses in this case.
As you know, I made a request for the judge to issue what we call the gag order, and the judge is going to issue it on a reciprocal basis. So I'm not going to say anything that I didn't say in my papers and in court.
So P. Diddy will be back in court in December. Federal authorities say more charges could be filed. In New York City, I'm Alexis McAdams, Fox News.
Alexis, thanks so much. Let's bring into the conversation to talk about this major development. Our friend, former federal prosecutor, legal analyst, Nima Rahmani, he joins me. Nima, good to see you here. Are you surprised that a trial date has already been set? He was just arrested and charged, what, not even a month ago here? This is moving along quite rapidly.
I'm not surprised, Andrew, and the defense has said that they intend to push this case to trial, and I think that's even more likely now that Combs is in custody. We think that the defense is going to base this case likely on cross-examination. The reason I think that is when the new judge in this case, Judge Subramanian, who the first appearance was before today, the case was transferred from Judge Carter for reasons unknown. Now, Subramanian's a newer judge appointed by Biden, has mostly a civil background, not a lot of criminal experience. So it was interesting to see how he was going to handle this case, and he's handling it like any other case. And the big case he's handling right now is the Department of Justice versus Ticketmaster and the antitrust case. But to the extent that Combs doesn't want to waive time and wants to push the case forward, the government's going to have to comply. It's the defendant's right to a speedy trial. And when we're talking about estimates of how long the trial would take, the government said about 3 weeks for their witnesses and their presentation. And the defense said they only need 1 week, which means that I think they're going to base this case on attacking the credibility of the witnesses. Many of them have filed civil lawsuits, so they're going to say this is extortion, it's a money grab, it's a shakedown, it's all about money, and that's where they're fabricating these stories. So I think given the fact that Combs is in custody, the fact that the case will be mostly based on cross-examination, the defense's position is going to be, let's push this case to trial as quickly as possible. The government may not be prepared, and we may jam them up.
So, I mean, if the defense only wants a week of their arguments, does that mean they won't call up their client to the stand? Well, did he testify or not? Or should we not get ahead of ourselves here? Is it too early?
Anything's possible. We have seen a trend where defendants have taken the stand and testified more and more. Historically, they haven't. The challenge when you put your defendant on the stand in a criminal case is the entire case is going to come down entirely to his or her testimony. I mean, jurors are going to lean forward and start paying attention. And if that defendant lies, that's a quick recipe for a guilty verdict. And I think the challenge in this case is not necessarily the witnesses, Andrew. It's the video evidence. And there's a treasure trove of it. Prosecutors were talking about it today. Terabytes and terabytes of data seized from 96 different devices during the raids of Diddy's homes in Miami, Los Angeles. And when the search warrants were executed, he was at the airport. They even took 9 devices from him. So if you believe longtime girlfriend Cassie Ventura, and I do, Diddy recorded many of these sex acts. We've obviously all seen the CNN video where he appears to be beating her at the Intercontinental Hotel. So if there is a lot of video evidence, I don't see how Diddy can take the stand and really rebut that evidence. Obviously, we don't know what the videos show, who's on it. It might be other celebrities and so forth, but it's going to be a challenge in this case.
But, Nima, there is so much evidence. I mean, the Associated Press characterizes this, that the judge set deadlines for lawyers on each side to submit arguments that will establish the boundaries for a trial, establishing boundaries. How do you do that with 96 electronic devices that were seized in these raids? How do you establish narrow boundaries, Nima, with so much evidence?
Well, I think there's a couple ways to do it. One, in terms of the counts and the number of defendants. You know, I'm not going to regurgitate all the unfounded rumors, but there are a lot of them. I'm here in Hollywood and all over the country that there were other rich and powerful people who were involved in these freak-offs. And so far, at least to date, No one else has been charged. Not any members of Diddy's entourage, Christina Joram, his chief of staff, civil lawsuits, but they haven't been charged, at least not yet. So that leads me to believe that the prosecution wants to keep this case streamlined, focused, narrow. And of course, now we know there are some allegations. Again, they haven't filed lawsuits yet, but if you believe the civil plaintiffs' attorneys, of minor victims, 25 of which some as young as 9 years old. I think if those individuals come forward, I think prosecutors will really have no choice but to add those allegations to a superseding indictment. And the judge said if that happens, that might push this trial back. And I think the minors are important for one very important reason. Obviously, the law is intended to protect minors, but it really changes the defense in this case because we know that Diddy, through his lawyers, is arguing that these freak-offs, they were all consensual. They might be weird, they might be strange, but obviously minors cannot consent to sexual activity. So to the extent there's allegations, credible ones involving minors, that puts the defense in a very different position. They can't argue that there was no force, fraud, or coercion. They're gonna have to argue that the sexual contact didn't happen at all. So it'll be a very different defense at trial.
All right, Nima Rahmani there. Can't thank you enough. Just lastly here, do you sense any delays here? You kind of intimated, but for that, what we were just discussing, this could be delayed.
But for a superseding indictment, which means prosecutors go to the grand jury to add additional charges or defendants, I don't think this trial is going to be pushed back unless there's some delay in extracting and producing this data to the defense.
All right, Nima, can't thank you enough. I'm sure we'll be talking about this case very, very soon. Have a good night.
Thanks, Andrew. You too.
All right, and just remember, I just want to reiterate here what the indictment said. It alleges that Combs coerced and abused women for years with help from a network of associates and employees while silencing victims through blackmail and violent acts, including kidnapping, arson, and physical beatings. Remember, he's pleaded not guilty. He is still in jail. Remember, some of the appeals that his team of attorneys made were denied to get him out of jail pending trial. He's still in jail right now. Remember, these charges include racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking. Just want to note this from Nima Rahmani as well, that Diddy himself in court, that Diddy seemed confident. He was waving and blowing kisses to his family. Alexis McAdams noted that and acknowledged that as well here. If we could go back to Nima Rahmani's tweet there, Nima was kind of outlining this gag order request. He says the defense asked for a gag order and blamed the government for leaking evidence like the 2016 video of Diddy beating Cassie Ventura to the media. The judge did not rule on the request, but Diddy clearly cares about the court of public opinion as much as the courtroom. That is Nima Rahmani's assessment there. All right, so wanted to make sure we got that in. And also there was a new judge in the case. Wasn't entirely clear why a new judge was appointed here. Judge Subramanian, he was appointed by President Biden. But he treated this like any other case. Nima says, we don't know why the case was transferred from the previous judge, Judge Carter. That remains to be seen here. So wanted to get all those details in. It's a story we're going to stay on top of as well, and we thank Nima Rahmani. In the meantime here, we are approaching the top of the hour here. Want to squeeze one more top headline in today that you may have heard by now. One of the last remaining members of Camelot, Kennedy watchers know that term here. I'm talking about the matriarch, Ethel Kennedy, the widow of Robert F. Kennedy, the mother of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., passing away just this morning there at the age of 96. She suffered a stroke in her sleep on October 3rd and had been recovering ever since. Fox News correspondent Molly Line has more on this incredible American life from Boston.
Married into political royalty, Ethel Skakel Kennedy was at the forefront of American politics for most of her life. A woman who suffered the assassination of her husband, Robert, with dignified stoicism, never losing sight of the social issues he championed and becoming an enduring icon in her own right. Born April 11, 1928 in Chicago, she enjoyed a childhood of privilege in Greenwich, Connecticut, where she attended private school before entering Manhattanville College of the Sacred Heart in New York. It was there that she became friends and roommates with Gene Kennedy, which led to an introduction to Gene's brother, Robert. In June 1950, at the age of 22, the two were wed, and she became Mrs. Robert F. Kennedy. Athletic and outgoing, Ethel embraced the Kennedy zest for life, competing against her brothers-in-law on the ocean and joining in the already legendary hard-hitting touch football games on the lawn of the family's Cape Cod compound. Robert and Ethel Kennedy would settle in Virginia, where in 1956 they bought Hickory Hill, a sprawling suburban Washington home from Bobby's older brother Jack. Already parents to 5 kids, the 13-bedroom estate suited their lifestyle and had room for their expanding family, which would ultimately grow to 11 children. When her brother-in-law JFK ran for president in 1960, she had a front-row seat to history. But tragedies often overshadowed the triumphs, and with President Kennedy's assassination in 1963, Robert found himself the de facto patriarch of the family. Despite enduring grief at the loss of his brother, in 1964, with Ethel and his children by his side, Robert Kennedy announced he would run for U.S. Senate in New York, a race he ultimately won. His younger brother, Ted, had been elected to JFK's old Senate seat. And with both brothers in Washington, it seemed the promise of a political dynasty lived on. But RFK, increasingly vocal in his opposition to the Vietnam War, wanted more. In 1968, he declared his candidacy for president and immediately began campaigning across the country. He had the name recognition, and with a victory in the California primary, seemed poised to win the Democratic nomination. Moments later, shots rang out at the Ambassador Hotel. Like his brother before him, Robert Kennedy had been assassinated. Ethel Kennedy was just 40 years old. Her 11th child, a daughter she named Rory, was born 6 months later. She would never remarry, carrying on her life with quiet dignity and dedicating herself to her children and her late husband's causes. The matriarch of the Kennedy family, she was a grandmother to more than 20 children and remained involved in politics to the very end, standing behind Barack Obama in his bid for the presidency. In Boston, Molly Line, Fox News.
Molly, thanks so much. Well, this is how we all found out this morning. Members of the Kennedy family putting out this statement, including Ethel Kennedy's daughter, Carrie Kennedy, saying, "It is with our hearts full of love that we announce the passing of our mother, Ethel Kennedy. She died this morning from complications related to a stroke suffered last week. Along with a lifetime's work in social justice and human rights, our mother leaves behind 9 children, 34 grandchildren, and 24 great-grandchildren, along with numerous nieces and nephews, all of whom love her dearly. She was a devout Catholic and a daily communicant, and we're comforted knowing she is reunited with the love of her life, our father, Robert F. Kennedy, her children, David and Michael, her daughter-in-law, Mary, her grandchildren, Maeve and Saoirse, and her great-grandchildren, Gideon and Josie. Please keep our mother in your hearts and prayers there." So that was the statement put out by her children there. The JFK Library in Boston also with this tribute saying, "All of us at the JFK Library and Foundation are deeply saddened to learn of the passing of Ethel Kennedy," there with the photo. We're getting more and more tributes in as well here, including from Cheryl Hines, the wife of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. She says, "My mother-in-law, Ethel Kennedy, Bobby's mother, passed this morning. It's been my great honor to have shared laughter and love with Ethel. Her charisma, wisdom, and strength will live on with me in every memory of her," there. So Cheryl Hines weighing in. Also, Maria Shriver, her niece, weighing in. She says, "My aunt, Ethel Kennedy, passed this morning. What a life she led. What a huge family she created and leaves behind." She says, "I'm so glad I was able to laugh with her this summer, to share memories with her." And so many coming in as well from former presidents. Bill Clinton, he says this, that Ethel was a fierce fighter for justice and equality, a warm, wonderful woman, a great mother, and a dear friend. She never let the tragedy of losing her partner, Robert F. Kennedy, far too early, harden her heart, instead choosing to carry on his unfinished work by building one of the most effective human rights organizations in the world there. So President Clinton commenting on this. Also, former President Barack Obama saying, "Ethel Kennedy was a dear friend with a passion for justice, an irrepressible spirit, and a great sense of humor. She touched the lives of countless people around the world with her generosity and grace, and was an emblem of enduring faith and hope." Of course, former President Obama bestowing Ethel Kennedy with the nation's highest civilian honor, the Presidential Medal of Freedom there in that photo. In the meantime here, we're in a new hour. Let's take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're checking in with my colleague, Austin Westfall. He's going to give us a sense of what's in store for some of our coverage here tonight in these next couple of hours. We'll see you in 2 minutes. And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. Thanks for being with us here. Let's check in with my colleague and friend, Austin Westfall. He joins me in the Live Now newsroom with what's in store for his time on the desk. You have manned the next couple of hours here. It's not only Milton, there are some political events, aren't there, Austin?
We've been spending the past day and a half with basically wall-to-wall Milton coverage. We are still going to be keeping up with all the updates out of Florida. We're going to be catching up with Duke Energy to talk about the millions of people that are still being affected by those power outages in Florida. We're going to be talking with Duke a little bit later on in the evening. We're also expecting to check in with Fox News multimedia reporter Chelsea Torres. She, of course, was in Lakeland last night. I believe she's still posted up somewhere in the Tampa Bay region. We're going to be asking her about some of the recovery efforts. Also on tap is an event with J.D. Vance. As you've mentioned, he is doing a sit-down with, he's doing a sit-down with Danica Patrick. And the other big political story that's interesting is former President Obama also hitting the campaign trail, I believe for the first time for an official event, doing a rally for Kamala Harris. We're going to be airing J.D. Vance in full in a moment here. We're also going to be airing Obama's remarks later on in the evening as well, Andrew. But I believe first we're going to be starting out with J.D. Vance.
All right, that's right. Obama in Pittsburgh, Vance in North Carolina. Let's tee up Vance. Let's watch.
To start it off with. Okay. You have such a good one and you have such a strong one. The people here of North Carolina have been dealing with a lot, obviously, with the hurricane that just came through Florida. And we're going to touch on a lot of topics today about other things that challenge the American people day in and day out, especially over the last few years. So you are no stranger. I just saw your socks.
I'm a dog person.
Awesome. Is that a Malinois?
No, German Shepherd.
Oh, German Shepherd.
We're a big German Shepherd family.
That is awesome. So, speaking of your personality, so, you know, you're no stranger to having challenges in your life and having to dig deep and having to come through and just to get where you are today. I would love for you to share with us what it is about your mindset and the tools that you use to be able to achieve the great things that you have?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for doing this. It's awesome to be here. Thank you to North Carolina. 26 days, we're going to turn this state red. We're going to do it together. God bless you guys. And I guess it's a tough question to ask, or tough question to answer, because it's always hard to evaluate yourself honestly. And I think that maybe the two things, yes, I did have a tough life in some ways, and my mom struggled with addiction for a big chunk of my early life. I was raised by my grandmother. We didn't always have very much money. We love Mamaw. I know we got a lot of Mamaw lovers out here. I see the book. But I think that the main thing that allowed me to be able to live my dreams is, one, we live in the greatest country in the world. Obviously, that's important. I don't think my story could have happened anywhere but the United States of America. But I think what I always had this sense of gratitude, because, my grandmother, she couldn't walk very well towards the end of her life. I mean, she died when she was 72 years old, which, then I thought was really old, but now I think it's kind of young, actually.
It is.
And I realized, there were so many little ways where without her love and without her support and without her going above and beyond, I just wouldn't have been here. And that recognition, you can let yourself become a victim when times are tough. You can sort of become a little resentful, or you can recognize that, there, but by the grace of God go I. And because of Mamaw, I was able to, marry this beautiful woman who's here. Usha's, my lovely wife, is with me. And, everything that I really wanted, I just wanted to become a good husband and become a good dad. And that was the American dream to me. And that was possible because my grandmother, and those of you who've read the book will know, she was a very, very interesting and in some ways even a contradictory person, right? Because she was a woman of incredibly profound Christian faith. She never graduated from high school, but she was the smartest person that I ever knew. She also really loved the F word, right? So there was sort of all these things going on with Mamaw at the same time. But I just think that, that the advice that I would give to anybody, and I actually met a young man today who was raised by his grandmother and told me a little bit about his story, and I'm always grateful when people tell me about where they came from, is don't let yourself become a victim, and don't forget that however hard your life has been, it would be a lot harder, but for people that you ought to show some gratitude towards. And if you keep that spirit of gratitude, I think you'll do just fine.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. This is the town hall, so let's get to some questions.
Let's do it.
The first question is from Adam.
You guys stand up. How are you, Senator Vance?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Pretty good, a little tired. Over the last 14 days, we, myself, my fiance, and these awesome pilots behind us have been delivering supplies all over Western North Carolina.
God bless you guys. God bless y'all. We love you. We're proud of you, and we're so grateful to you. They're here.
We've seen a bit of everything. We've seen absolute decimation, we've seen destruction, and we have seen miracles left and right. Over the last 14 days, we've probably had close to, just at our location, maybe 500 different volunteers come through. And we have seen American of every shape, color, creed, and size helping every other American, which is what America is supposed to be. There's two big fears that we have. The biggest fear right now is that when all this is over, Western North Carolina becomes a footnote. And we don't want that. We don't want that for anybody that's left behind after a disaster, holding the bag, trying to rebuild everything that they've lost. And the second fear is that we won't have an opportunity to have a real conversation about the after action of what took place in order for us to understand how we can use a combination of both private sector and public sector funding and efforts to have effective, efficient actions on the ground, to make it more mobile and more agile, but more importantly, to re-inject capital back into the local economy. So this is my question. The first thing I'd like to ask is this. Will you and President Trump promise to not forget Western North Carolina if you win the election?
We will never forget Western North Carolina. That's right.
And I don't doubt that you won't. I do not doubt. The second question I think is more important. The second question is, when can we sit down and have a real legitimate conversation about overhauling the process of disaster relief in the United States?
Amen.
And understanding,
Amen. Yeah.
if I may, understanding that the bureaucratic process of red tape that we have to cut through in order to get the funding directly to the people who need it most is just simply takes too long. And it's not the fault of any individual agency or the federal government. There's a lot of...
Hold on just a second, man. We okay? Kamala Harris built this platform behind us. That's what happened. We doing okay, ma'am? We good?
You can have my chair if you want.
Go ahead, sir.
The question is, can we have a conversation about revamping a national disaster strategy so that we can utilize retired veterans and special operations personnel who have been leading the charge hands down in Western North Carolina and effectively provided food, supplies, and medical aid and assistance to thousands and thousands of lives, and revamping the national disaster strategy in the United States so that we can make it more effective?
Yeah, man, that's a big question, an important question. And let me just say, I want to reiterate, Donald Trump and I know that the Appalachian region of our country, Western North Carolina, East Tennessee, East Kentucky, West Virginia, Southwestern Virginia, has been left behind and forgotten, and we're not going to do it. We're not going to do it in response to this disaster, and we're never going to let the people of that region of our country, the region really built our country, we're never going to let them be left behind or forgotten. I promise that to you, man. And let me just say about the disaster response. First of all, I want to thank you all for everything that you did. And I want to thank all the private relief agencies, the charities, the Good Samaritans who did their job and took care of their fellow Americans. God bless you guys. We should all be proud of them. And it would have been a lot worse without them. And look, I think now that hopefully we're moving to the stage where we're trying to rebuild as opposed to just recover. And I know we're still recovering a little bit, and that's an unfortunate tragedy here. But I think once we get past that, hopefully in the next few days, where we've gotten everybody, saved everybody that we can save, then it's time to focus on the disastrous federal response to this incredible crisis. And I think what I've learned is look, 2 days, okay, you have the hurricane, Western North Carolina is underwater. What should have happened is that the president and the vice president should have sent the 82nd Airborne to Western North Carolina that day, and it should have happened right away. And instead, of course, we had a president at the beach and a vice president at a fundraiser in San Francisco. What you need in times like this is you just need leadership. Because I think, sir, you put it so well, it's not any one agency. And there are a lot of people working on the federal effort who are doing a good job, or at least is doing as good as they can. The problem is all the bureaucratic incompetence. And I was actually talking with Elon Musk about this a few days ago. I mean, Elon, by the way, was like a center-left Democrat 4 years ago. Now he's got a dark MAGA hat, right? On that you didn't talk about a guy who's pissed off about government incompetence. He's Elon Musk. But I think what happened is, look, you've got the FAA, you've got FEMA, you've got all these relief agencies, and you've got people who have been trained by the government bureaucracy that their job is not to cut the BS and help people, it's to basically act like the DMV, right? And unfortunately, what that means in this case is you've got a lot of people who could have been helped, a lot of lives that could have been saved that weren't. And there's a lot of details to figure out. I'm sure we're going to learn a lot about how corrupt and incompetent our government is. But I think the most important thing here is we try to get to the bottom of how we had such a massive failure. And I'm sorry, think about this. In 2010, the terrible earthquake in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, the 82nd Airborne was there 2 days later. 2 days later. The 82nd Airborne is an hour away from Western North Carolina, and it took 6 days to get them there. That doesn't happen without a failure of leadership. We got to get to the bottom of exactly what that failure of leadership looked like. And the final thing I'll say, sir, is the only way to fix this is by accountability. It's true in the private sector. It's true in the public sector. If you don't have accountability, in other words, if you don't fire the people who screwed up, it's never going to get better. And what is fundamentally... And what's fundamentally different about the leadership style of Kamala Harris and Donald Trump is Donald Trump, I mean, hell, he got famous saying, "You're fired." He believes in accountability in our government. Kamala Harris just doesn't. I think it's this attitude of go along to get along, of, yeah, you screwed up and maybe even you got people killed, but we're not going to fire you. That's not going to do good for our people in the 21st century. And I want to say just one final thing. When I see you, and it sounds like you guys are pilots, you guys were helping get relief resources.
These guys are all pilots. The guys that are here, maybe a crew that have been flying.
I just want to say, man, I want to be the kind of vice president where you feel like I have your back and that I haven't left you behind. And I know that Donald Trump wants to be the kind of president that will always have your back and never leave you behind. We are so proud of you. We're so grateful for you, and we're going to fight for you when we're in the White House. God bless you guys. Thank you. Thanks for the question, man.
That's what it is to be an American. That's what it is to be an American. Our next question comes from Jean.
First, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. And thank you for being that public official who knows how to answer a question.
Thank you, Gina. Thank you.
I am from North Carolina, and my question regards illegal immigration. Last week, we learned that 13,000 murderers came across our border illegally. What is the plan to deport these awful criminals?
Yes, ma'am. The plan, to put it simply, is we got to send them home. We got to send them home ASAP, and that's exactly what we're going to do. They have no right to be in this country. And, you know, it's funny because the media, which for 3.5 years has refused to even cover the terrible problems of Kamala Harris's open border, will now say things like, well, how are you going to deport people? You know, it's just way too hard to deport people. It's actually not hard to deport people. You just got to have competent administration that's willing to send people back to where they belong and not let them collect benefits in our country. And ma'am, I really think that unless we get this right in the next administration, we are throwing open the floodgates to illegal immigration for the next 30 years in this country. Think of the message that you're sending. Because yes, it's 13,000 murderers, and it's tens of thousands of violent criminals in addition to the 13,000 murderers, but it's also millions upon millions of people who have come here, and some of them are good people, but that doesn't mean they have the legal right to be in the United States of America. We've got to separate those two things. And if the message that our country sends after 25 million illegal aliens coming into this country is you get to stay here, you get to collect housing benefits, you get to collect welfare benefits, while folks in Western North Carolina are struggling to survive, we will never have a border in this country again. It's why we got to elect Donald Trump. Send a message to these people. No more illegal immigration, no more open borders. Good, ma'am.
On the topic of illegal immigration, it's estimated that it costs this country $150 billion a year. So I'd like to hear where is that affecting the American people? And when that's solved, what can they expect to improve?
Yeah, Danny, it's affecting people in so many different ways. And I actually think that $150 billion may even be undercounting it, because a lot of what that money is illegal aliens who collect welfare benefits in some form or another. So that's Section 8 housing. And take just one example. Let's say and I've seen this in communities that I represent in the state of Ohio, where you'll have multiple families living in the same house. Each of them gets Section 8. So they're able to pay way more than an American citizen who's just working at their job 40, 45, 50 hours a week. And so Americans are getting evicted from their homes to make way for illegal aliens who are only there because of the generosity of American taxpayers. That is one of the biggest ways it affects us, is it drives up the cost of housing, and it leads to a lot of people being unable to afford their homes. Here's another big way it matters. I don't know what the exact number in North Carolina is, but I learned in Michigan, 85,000 children of illegal aliens are in the Michigan public schools. And Michigan and North Carolina, probably about the same number, actually, here in the state of North Carolina. Well, what do you think that does to the poor public high school teacher who's just trying to give kids a good education, but all of a sudden they're dealing with classrooms that are full of people, they don't even speak the language. And again, it's nothing against those kids. It's saying something against Kamala Harris, who let those kids come in and deprive Americans of a good education. Here's another big way that it matters, and this is something I know very personally. My mom struggled with addiction for a very long time. And my mom got clean and sober about 10 years ago. She'll actually celebrate 10 years clean and sober in January. And I thank you all for that. And I just know, please, that there is hope on the other side of addiction. There really is hope and recovery for all of those who are struggling with it or have families that do. But there's only hope if we give people a second chance. One thing I really worry about is when you talk about 100,000 Americans dying of fentanyl, and the fentanyl, of course, is brought in by these Mexican drug cartels. That's 100,000 kids that never get a second chance with their mom. That's 100,000 moms and dads that never get a second chance to become clean. This is destroying our country. And I happen to believe we've got the best people in the world. We've got the best country in the world, but we cannot allow Kamala Harris's broken leadership to continue to screw this up, or that's going to change. We've got great people. Let's fix the broken leadership and get Kamala Harris out of there.
We all look forward to that. Our next question.
26 days.
26 days.
That's right.
26 days. The countdown is on.
It's going to happen.
Get voting. Vote early.
That's right.
Our next question comes from Kaylee.
Hello. Thank you, Senator Vance, for being here.
Of course.
And thank you for taking questions, because you're doing a great job.
I've taken more questions in the past 15 minutes than Kamala Harris has the whole campaign. But you guys,
I'm a small business owner and a first-time voter, and I'm a hairdresser.
God bless you.
I was wondering how you were going to help. Oh, I lost my place. Oh, one day I want to start a family and own my own home, but with raising costs, I do not know if that will be able to happen. You have come from humble beginnings, so what is your plan for creating more opportunities for people like me?
Yes, ma'am, of course. Well, thank you for your question, and it's an important one. And I will say, I think we've got a question here, a question over here, and a question over here. I think I need a swivel chair the next time that we do an event like this.
You need to make us a lazy Susan.
That's right.
Spin around.
Well, I think to answer your question, let's start by understanding because it's really important to understand the root causes of some of these problems. Why are things so expensive under Kamala Harris's leadership? And there are a whole host of things I could point to, but actually the most important is energy, okay? So think about it like this. Groceries are 25% higher than they were 3.5 years ago. That's because the truck drivers are paying way more for diesel fuel, and it's the truck drivers who are getting the groceries to the grocery store. Our farmers are paying more for diesel, and of course, they're the ones growing the food. And then finally, you think about building a house. Well, if all the people who are doing the building and delivering the materials are paying more for gas and more for energy, then that's going to raise the price of everything. So President Trump has this phrase, which I think is very simple, but it's also a genuinely specific policy. The most important thing we got to do to lower prices and make life more affordable is drill, baby, drill. We've got to unleash American energy. It really is so important. And it also, by the way, I admire you so much for doing what you do and having the courage to go out and do it on your own. It's not easy, but you ought to have a government that makes your life a little bit easier and makes it a little bit easier for you to get ahead instead of harder and harder to get ahead. I mean, think about this. You're a small businesswoman. You're building something that is creating prosperity, not just for you, but for your community. Of course, you provide a good service. I need a haircut right now, by the way, so I'll call you. But think about this. We have got two really different economic proposals from Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. You know, Kamala Harris's entire economic plan boils down to, we're going to raise taxes on American workers, and we're going to reward companies that ship jobs overseas. Donald Trump's vision is like the exact opposite. We're going to cut taxes for American workers. We're going to penalize folks who are shipping American jobs overseas. We want to reward people like you who are creating prosperity right here in the United States of America. But the one last thing I'd say, and I'd ask you to, I'm sure you've got, a lot of friends. You're clearly, like you said, you're a first-time voter. And I know that there are a lot of first-time voters who are still figuring this stuff out. What I really worry about, and I'm older than you, but I'm pretty young by the standards of national politics. I'm only 40. And one of the things I really worry about is the young generation in this country. They're growing up in a nation where they're going to become paupers in the country that their parents and their grandparents built. The American dream of homeownership, not being deep in credit card debt. I want you to own a piece of the future and not just be a permanent debtor to people and institutions that don't care about you and don't like you. I want you to own a slice of this country, and that's how we're going to create prosperity. Thank you.
The globalist view of own nothing and be happy is not what the American people want.
They want you to live in a pod, eat bugs, and own nothing, right? That is like fundamentally, that's where their vision ultimately lands. I want you to own a nice house, be able to start a family, and build a great business in the United States of America. And that's what Donald Trump is fighting for every single day.
I tried cricket one time. I just couldn't wrap my head around eating crickets. I know they're high in protein, but...
I'm ashamed to admit it. I've also tried cricket. It is honestly more disgusting than you could possibly imagine. So don't eat the bugs. We want to eat red meat. We want to eat whatever we want to eat.
Yes.
But no cricket.
I've somehow become a steak and potatoes girl, just like my dad always was. And he was like, Dad, where's the veggies? I'm like, where's the steak and potatoes?
That's right.
Kaylee, I'm also a first-time voter, I just want to say. I've never voted before,
that's
but
awesome.
this time around,
Good for you.
I have to vote. Yeah, it's that important.
I just want to be clear. I want to get on record. You're voting for us, right? You're voting for the good guys?
1,000%.
There we go.
If I could vote twice, I would.
We don't do that. We're Republicans. We vote legally. Only one time.
The way you vote twice is to bring a friend.
That's right.
Bring a friend.
That's a good point. Vote twice the legal way. Bring yourself and a friend to the polls. That's very good.
Speaking of energy, we became energy independent for the first time under Donald Trump's administration.
Right.
With AI requiring so much power to run it, and with wanting to become energy independent again, how long do you think it's going to take to be there again? And what is the pathway to that?
That's a very good question, because to your point, AI requires so much power that unless we have effectively unlimited power, we're not going to be able to power the AI revolution. I mean, this is like crazy, space age stuff. Like, instead of going to a doctor to get your skin checked out to see if you have skin cancer, for example, you can take a photo and it'll tell you whether you have cancer. Like, that's what the AI revolution is going to mean. That's going to mean more people living. That's going to mean cheaper medical costs, but only to your point, if we get those energy costs reasonable. You ask, how long is it going to take to get energy independent? If Donald Trump is the president, it'll happen almost immediately because we've got so much energy here, we can do it. I mean, 2 years to get us back to where we were. Because, I mean, look, in Pennsylvania, in North Carolina, I mean, in Florida, we've got energy resources that the world would literally kill for. And in some cases, some of these countries have actually started wars over the resources we have. Kamala's entire policy is to buy oil and gas from tin-pot dictators all over the world. Let's buy it from American citizens right here at home and create a lot of good American jobs in the process. But look, if Kamala Harris wins, God forbid, I'm gonna have nightmares now just for saying that. But I think it would take us 10 years after her administration, assuming she only got 4 years, it would take us 10 years to get us out of the hole that she would dig us into. That's how bad these guys are on energy. They've got it in their mind that they care about the environment, but they don't actually care about the environment. We believe in clean air and clean water in the Republican Party. We actually created a lot of the environmental protections that exist. You know, you were on stage with Bobby Kennedy. Bobby Kennedy cares about the environment. Trust me, he does. But if you want clean air, you don't ship all of our manufacturing and energy to China, which is the dirtiest economy per unit of economic output in the world. You build more and make more in the United States of America. That's what President Trump will do.
Our next question comes from Patricia.
Good evening.
Now I really need that swivel chair, Patricia.
I've got your back.
Thank you. That's right.
I'm Pat, and I'm from Timberlake, North Carolina. And I'm a retired healthcare worker. And my question tonight is that it's about Social Security.
Yes, ma'am.
And I've seen ads and posts where Donald Trump is going to take away our Social Security or cut it or decrease it. But then I also see ads and posts that Donald Trump is planning to remove taxes on Social Security. Can you explain and describe and clarify yours and Donald Trump's Social Security plan?
Yes, ma'am. Well, first of all, and I'm sure I don't have to tell you this, but I'm going to stand up here because I'm, ma'am, I think you know this. I think a lot of us know this. Don't believe everything you see on TV because a lot of those things are paid for by Democrat money. It's dishonest. Here's what Donald Trump's going to do. He's going to protect Social Security, and he is going to cut taxes on Social Security income because our seniors, you paid into it for your whole lives. You ought to be able to enjoy the benefit of it on the other end. It's that simple. But here's something that really matters here, because you know what will bankrupt Social Security in this country? Giving it to illegal aliens. And that is exactly, this is what I think is so sick about what Kamala Harris is going out there doing. She is accusing us of doing the very same thing that she herself is promising to do. She wants to bankrupt this program, not by giving it to the people who paid into it, by giving it to people who don't even have the legal right to be in this country to begin with. And if you want our seniors to enjoy their Social Security, Donald J. Trump is the only candidate in this race that's going to protect it. Ma'am.
So I think it's safe to say that if you were in the administration for the last few years, you'd do some things different.
I think so. I think so.
I like that when Kamala speaks, we gain 100,000 votes. Is that the number?
You know, though some of her interviews are so bad, maybe it's a couple 100,000 votes. But, you know, there's an interview that she gave a couple of days ago with The View.
Not exactly a hard-hitting one.
No. this, like, you know, the ultimate softball interview, but I guess it's tough if you can't even hit a T-ball, which I think is Kamala Harris in some of these interviews. But, you know, she was asked, and we had to back up for a second. Remember, the whole argument of her campaign is that she is different from Joe Biden. You would actually, in fact, you know, be forgiven for believing that she's not his sitting vice president, even though, of course, she is, because she's running so far away from it. And she cast the deciding vote on a lot of the worst policy. She has bragged about being the last person in the room when these decisions were made. So The View asked Kamala Harris, a total softball, would you have done anything differently from Joe Biden over the last 4 years? And Kamala Harris says, nothing comes to mind. It blew up the whole lie at the heart of her campaign in one interview answer. And I will say, though, when she says nothing comes to mind, that's probably true about whatever topic the answer is about. So I'm hardly the most obvious person to defend Kamala Harris, but maybe she was just being honest about her state of mind.
Shows she's a placeholder.
Exactly.
Didn't have any thoughts. We know that it would be different with you guys, and we know that you answer questions, and we love that. We love having someone in charge of our country that answers questions and that's going to get things done.
I appreciate that. Well, So I think this answering questions thing is actually kind of important because, look, I'm 40 years old. It's other than marrying this beautiful lady up here and raising our kids together, the greatest honor of my life is being your vice presidential nominee for the Republican Party. It's an incredible thing. It's an incredible honor to be able to do this. But think about this. I'm asking you all to make me your next vice president. That is an awesome thing, an incredible responsibility I'm asking for. You ought to go out and earn it and speak to the American people. Kamala Harris runs from the American people, and I think that shows a real defect of the kind of leadership skills you need to be the president of the United States in the first place. And I will tell you this story. So I guess this was a couple weeks ago. It was a Sunday, and I was sitting at home with our 7-year-old in Cincinnati, and I get a call, and it's the president. And I said, hey, sir, what's going on? How you doing? And he said, well, they tried to do it again. And I said, well, they tried to do what again? And it was the Sunday where a second assassination attempt happened on President Trump's life. He had just gotten from the golf course. And I, you know, like any friend, I immediately go to, you know, how are you doing? Are you okay? Like, obviously you're physically okay because you're calling me, but mentally that's a pretty traumatic thing to almost get shot a second time in as many months. And he goes, yeah, I'm fine. He goes, you know, but the one thing is I'm kind of pissed off because I was going to make a birdie on the 6th hole and the Secret Service wouldn't let me finish.
It's a big deal. Birdies are hard.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not a very good golfer, so I feel the same, you know, the same way. He's a hell of a lot better of a golfer than I am, and I really care about those birdies. But then something kind of hit me that isn't the kind of person you want in emergency crisis situations in the Oval Office. You want the guy who isn't fazed by an assassination attempt. You don't want the woman who runs from a friendly American media. Like, there's something... You know, there's something about the way that Kamala Harris has run this campaign that I think is genuinely, to all Americans, Democrats, Independents, Republicans, is insulting. Because think about it, she's asking you to give her control over millions of American troops. Potentially, I mean, over the entire nuclear arsenal of the United States. She is asking for literally the authority to command life and death all over the world. And she won't even go out and talk to the American people in a non-friendly setting. We all should be insulted by that. I think it's a disgraceful way to run a campaign, and I hope we don't reward her, and I don't think that we will.
And just to wrap it up, since I know you'll answer any question.
Oh, no.
I think you could share maybe what you did with your day off that you had a couple days ago and what your special secret skill is with the American people.
All right, well.
And be specific.
Okay, I will. Okay. Well, I was raised in a middle-class family, and it's that's the Kamala Harris answer to any question. So
You forgot to
you
laugh.
Guys, yeah,
you forgot to
that's
laugh.
Right. Yeah, I forgot the awkward cackle afterwards. But the okay. So I had half a day off on the campaign trail the other day, and because we're kind of in crunch time, so you don't really get much time off. But you'd probably be shocked to know this, that I'm a big baker. Like I really, I can. Yeah, there's some bakers out there. So my 4-year-old and I, he's like my sous chef when we're baking. So we made, because I was gonna, because my wife and I were on the road for a couple days. The kids are at home right now with my aunt and uncle, and then we get back late tonight. So I made them breakfast treats for 3 days in a row. And so for the first day, they had homemade cinnamon rolls. The second day, they had dulce de leche rolls. And the third day, they had chocolate chip scones. So we did all that together. And, I'm not perfect, but I do have the talent of baking. So that's one thing I got going for me.
Fantastic. Well, we also spoke about the fact that you don't get to drive anymore. So if you got to drive yourself away from here tonight, what kind of car would you want to drive?
Oh, that is a tough question.
Any car.
Well, this just shows the phase of life I'm in. I would happily take my minivan right now and drive it because I don't have any ability to drive anything else. God bless you guys. Thank you so much.
All right, J.D. Vance wrapping up with Danica Patrick. That's right, the famous racer, Danica Patrick, interviewing Vance at this town hall in Greensboro, the battleground state of North Carolina. Vance walking off stage as we see a dueling rally. Former President Obama holding a rally of his own in a battleground state on behalf of Kamala Harris. He's speaking live right now. We have to take a commercial break. On the other side of that, we're going to play Obama's remarks out from the top. Welcome back. I'm Austin Westfall. President Obama right now rallying in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania on behalf of Harris and Walz. Here he is. I believe this is his first official rally event for their campaign this cycle. Here he is.
Are you ready to go? It is good. It is good to be back in Pennsylvania. It is good to be back in Pittsburgh. I love Pittsburgh. You know, I love the people of Pittsburgh. I love the food in Pittsburgh. I don't usually do this, but this is a little bit of a Yelp rating. Just had some of Pamela's pancakes. I first had those like 10, 15 years ago when I was running. And I was all like, I need some of those pancakes this time out. And even though I'm from Chicago, some of you may know, when I was a kid, I was a Steelers fan. So, and watching the Steelers this season, it seems I'm not the only guy from Chicago who likes being in Pittsburgh. Because so far, Justin Fields is doing pretty good. Now, before we get started, we have a little bit of work to do here. All right, so I want everybody to be, just settle in. We got some work to do. Before we get started, I did want to say that we are, heartbroken about the loss of life in Florida, North Carolina, states across the Southwest. We are thinking about people, families whose lives have been upended by the storms over the last couple of weeks. I could not be more grateful for the first responders and FEMA professionals who have put themselves in harm's way to try and help. It's times like this when you realize having honest, competent leadership in government really matters. It makes a difference. And today I'm asking you to vote for some of those leaders, including some folks we need working with your outstanding governor, who you just heard from, Governor Josh Shapiro. We need them in Harrisburg. So we need you to vote for your next Auditor General, Malcolm Kenyatta. Your next Attorney General, Eugene DePasquale. Your next State Treasurer, Eric McClellan. And my buddy, your outstanding United States Senator, Bob Casey. Here in Pennsylvania, there are 3 ways to vote. You can vote early, in person, at the county election office, or at a satellite office. You can also vote by mail. And if you need to figure out how to do that, just go to iwillvote.com PA to find a place to vote early or to request a ballot. And of course, you can vote at your polling place on Election Day, November 5th. But if you're at this rally, let's face it, you're probably voting unless you are 12. So you also have to help your friends and family make a plan to vote. And even if you're 12, you can do that. Talk to your mom and dad and aunts and uncles, because together we have a chance to choose a new generation of leadership in this country and start building a better and stronger and fairer and more hopeful America. Now, you've already heard tonight, this election's going to be tight, because there are a lot of Americans who are still struggling out there. They're still striving to make life better for themselves, for their families, and for their kids. And let's face it, as a country, we've been through a lot these last few years. We had a historic pandemic wreaking havoc on communities and businesses. Disruptions from the pandemic then caused prices to spike, and that put a strain on family budgets. And in many ways, it's felt like the aspirations of working people have taken a back seat to the priorities of the rich and the powerful. So I get it, why people are looking to shake things up. I mean, I am the hopey-changey guy. So I understand people feeling frustrated and feeling we can do better. What I cannot understand is why anybody would think that Donald Trump will shake things up in a way that is good for you, Pennsylvania. I don't understand that. Because there is absolutely no evidence that this man thinks about anybody but himself. I've said it before. Donald Trump is a 78-year-old billionaire who has not stopped whining about his problems since he rode down his golden escalator 9 years ago. You've got the tweets in all caps, the ranting and the raving about crazy conspiracy theories. You got the 2-hour speeches, word salad, just, you know, it's like Fidel Castro, just on and on. Constant attempts to sell you stuff. Who does that? Selling you gold sneakers and a $100,000 watch and most recently a Trump Bible. You know, he wants you to buy the Word of God, Donald Trump edition. Got his name right there next to Matthew and Luke. I mean, you could not make this stuff up. If you saw it on Saturday Night Live, you'd say, well, no, that's going too far. No, he's doing that. It's crazy. And the reason he does it is because all he cares about is his ego and his money and his status. He's not thinking about you. Donald Trump sees power as nothing more than a means to an end. He wants the middle class to pay the price for another huge tax cut that would mostly help him and his country club buddies. Doesn't care if he costs more women their reproductive freedoms because it won't make a difference in his life. Do not boo. Vote. They can't hear your boos, but they can hear your votes. Most of all, Donald Trump wants us to think that this country is hopelessly divided between us and them, between the quote-unquote real Americans who support him and the outsiders who don't. Because having people divided and angry, he figures boosts his chances of being elected. And he doesn't care who gets hurt. I mean, think about it. Just the other day, we learned that on January 6th, a couple years ago, Donald Trump was told that Mike Pence was in the Capitol about 40 feet from an angry mob chanting, "Hang Mike Pence." And his response was, quote, "So what? Don't boo." If Donald Trump does not care that a mob might attack his own vice president, do you think he cares about you? Pennsylvania, we do not need 4 more years of that. We don't need 4 more years of arrogance and bumbling and bluster and division. America's ready to turn the page. We are ready for a better story, one that helps us work together instead of turning against each other. Pennsylvania, we're ready for President Kamala Harris. And the good news is Kamala Harris is ready to do the job. This is a leader who has spent her life fighting on behalf of people who need a voice and a champion. Somebody who was raised in the middle class, who worked a summer job at McDonald's while she earned a degree, who believes in the values that built this country. Somebody who has served with distinction in every office that she has ever held. I think we probably had a fainting spell back there. So let's make space for the emergency folks. This happens sometimes. Everybody bend their knees a little bit. You've been standing for a while. You can dance if you want. I just suggest to bend your knees. But she'll be okay. Kamala is as prepared for the job as any nominee for president has ever been. That's who Kamala is. And in the White House, she will have an outstanding partner in Governor Tim Walz. Tim is a veteran. He is a teacher. He's a coach. He's a hunter. He's been a great governor working with Democrats and Republicans to get stuff done. He can also take a vintage truck apart and put it back together again. You think Donald Trump can do that? For that matter, do you think Donald Trump has ever changed a tire in his life? No. I'm just trying to picture it. No. The point is, if you elect Kamala and Tim, they won't be focused on their problems, they'll be focused on yours. They understand that too many folks here in Pennsylvania and across the country are struggling to pay the bills. Even though wages are steadily growing and inflation is finally slowing, the price of everything from healthcare to housing to groceries, it's still too high. And that takes a real bite out of paychecks. It hurts. So the question is, who's really going to do something about it? That's what you should be asking yourself. Now, Donald Trump's plan is to do what he did last time, which was give another massive tax cut to billionaires and big corporations. And then, don't boo, I'm going to break you of this habit. And the reason some people think, well, I don't know, I remember that economy when he first came in being pretty good. Yeah, it was pretty good, because it was my economy. We had 75 straight months of job growth that I handed over to him. It wasn't something he did. I had spent 8 years cleaning up the mess that the Republicans had left me the last time. So just in case everybody has a hazy memory, he didn't do nothing except those big tax cuts. His other big economic plan now is to slap tariffs on everything, from food to TVs. Now, understand what tariffs are. Anything that's coming from that's made elsewhere and comes here, you slap extra money on top of it. And if other countries are cheating, in some cases, it makes sense because you want to have a fair playing field. But what he's proposing is basically a Trump sales tax that could cost the average family almost $4,000 a year. So if you're concerned about higher prices, that is not the way to get lower prices. That's going to come out of your pockets. You think prices are high now? Donald Trump's message basically is, you ain't seen nothing yet. All right, so that's, as far as you can tell, that's his plan, right? Because it's not written down anywhere. When it comes to health care, you heard it in the debate. Donald Trump's got one answer: ending the Affordable Care Act that 45 million people rely on. The other day, his running mate, J.D. Vance, you got to vote. The other day, his running mate had the nerve to say, Donald Trump salvaged the Affordable Care Act. I mean, Donald Trump spent his entire presidency trying to tear it down. And by the way, he couldn't even do that right. And now, 8 years after he was elected, when he was asked about what he was going to do, he says he's got concepts of a plan for how he'd replace it. Now, I want you all to think about this for a second. Let's say your boss gives you an assignment, a project. He says, I need this on Friday. And Friday comes around and he says, so, did you finish that project I asked for? And you say, well, I actually haven't started, but I have a concept of a plan. Or you could try it at home. Honey, did you do the dishes? I have a concept of a plan to do the dishes. How's that going to go over? If it wouldn't work for you, why in the heck should it work for the President of the United States? But the good news is, Kamala Harris, she doesn't have concepts for a plan. She has an actual plan to make your life better. To bring down the cost of things like groceries. She'll go after corporations that are jacking up prices. Just like she went after big banks and for-profit colleges when she was an attorney general in California. And believe me, when she does, nobody's going to want to stand in her way. I remember after the home mortgage crisis, Kamala pushed me and my administration harder than any other attorney general in the country to make sure homeowners got a fair settlement. It did not matter that she was pushing a Democratic administration. She was not going to let anybody stop her from winning as much relief as possible for the families who deserved it. And because of the work she did, those families got billions more than they would have otherwise got. That's the kind of president Kamala Harris will be.
You're listening in to former President Obama campaigning for the Harris-Walz ticket in Pittsburgh. Time to take a break. Back in 2. Welcome back. I'm Austin Westfall. In a moment, we're going to bring you back out to Pittsburgh for more from former President Obama. But this is an important thing. We have been hitting this throughout the night. You want to join Fox in supporting the recovery efforts following Hurricanes Helene and Milton. Your donation enables the Red Cross to respond to help people recover from these disasters. You can visit redcross.org/FoxForward to support these efforts, or you can scan the QR code on your screen. Families affected by hurricanes and tropical storms, they need your support. You can help the American Red Cross, and we excuse the video there. We want to make sure we keep the QR code on screen. But you can scan that QR code. Families affected by these storms do need support. You can help the American Red Cross provide meals and shelter to these families. You can donate today, again, by going to redcross.org/FoxForward or by scanning the QR code on your screen. We, of course, have been covering and been showing the images of some of the destruction, some of the aftermath, and some of these communities hardest hit by Milton in the overnight hours last night. Again, that QR code, or simply go to your web browser, type in redcross.org/FoxForward. Let's get you back out to Pittsburgh, where we're hearing from former President Obama.
To lower housing costs, Kamala will cut red tape and work with governors like Josh Shapiro, as well as the private sector, to build 3 million new homes. And she'll give first-time home buyers up to $25,000 to help with the down payment. Plans, concrete plans. And for a lot of folks, that could be the difference between watching their dreams pass them by or finally owning a place of their own. To lower health care costs, Kamala already worked with Joe Biden to take on the drug companies and bring down the cost of insulin and hearing aids and more than 50 prescription drugs. And as president, she will never stop working to limit out-of-pocket costs and protect your care. That's who Kamala is. She's got a track record of doing it. And here's a big one. Instead of giving more tax breaks to billionaires and raising prices on working families, Kamala will give a tax cut to 100 million middle class and working people here in America. So, if you're a new parent, you could qualify for a $6,000 tax credit during the first year of your child's life. Because I don't have to tell a lot of you, raising kids is hard. And she wants to make it easier to afford stuff like a crib or a car seat or diapers. I remember buying diapers. I remember the first time I went in the store right after Malia was born. I was like, what? That's how much diapers cost? I remember changing diapers. You think Donald Trump ever changed a diaper? Yeah. I almost said that, but I decided I shouldn't say it. If you're starting a small business, Kamala Harris will give you a $50,000 tax credit to help you get it off the ground. That's who Kamala Harris is. That's what she stands for. So with Kamala, you've got actual plans. Trump, concepts of a plan. Now, if you challenge Trump to elaborate and enumerate his concepts, he will fall back on one answer. J.D. Vance does the same thing. Doesn't matter what the issue is, housing, healthcare, education, paying the bills. Their only answer is to blame immigrants. They want you to believe that if you let Donald Trump round up whoever he wants, by the way, and ship them out, all your problems will be solved. Now, we've got real issues at the border. We are a nation of laws and a nation of immigrants. We have to make sure it's fair. There are communities at the border that can be overrun. We've got to actually solve a problem. But when I hear Donald Trump talking, I've got one question. As I recall, Donald Trump was president for 4 years. And if rounding up and deporting millions of desperate people and building the beautiful wall, and didn't matter whether some of those folks you rounded up were women and children, if that's the answer to everything, well, why didn't you solve the problem? Why were the number of immigrants basically the same when you left office as when you took office? I'll tell you why. Because he didn't have a real plan. He had talking points. He had concepts of a plan. And the plan was mean and ugly. And it was designed to enhance his politics and make people angry, not to solve the problem. You know what would actually help bring order to the border and fix our immigration system? The bipartisan deal that Kamala Harris supported, even though it was written by one of the most conservative Republicans in Congress, the same bill that Donald Trump tanked on purpose because he thinks fear-mongering is how he's going to win this election. He told Republicans, even the ones who had originally supported it, don't vote for it, because he doesn't want the problem solved. We don't need a president who will make problems worse just to make his own political circumstances better. We need a president who actually cares about solving problems and making your life better, and that's what Kamala Harris will do. And to help her do it, she will need a Senate full of serious public servants like Bob Casey. I'm going to talk about this man just for a second. I've known Bob for almost 20 years. I've watched his daughters grow up. I know his brothers and cousins, and let me tell you, there are a lot of brothers and cousins. And I can tell you that no one is more humble and more honest and more rooted in his community and has more integrity than Bob Casey. You know, in Washington, folks make a distinction between work horses and show horses. And Bob Casey, he's not a show pony. All the guy cares about is doing the job and looking after you, the people he was elected to serve. That's the kind of person we need to send back to Washington. That's the kind of person who's going to help Kamala get stuff done. Folks who share our values and will do what they can to move this country forward rather than backward. That's who Bob Casey is. Now, one of those values is freedom. And during election time, there are a lot of flags and there's a lot of talk about freedom. So let me talk about that just for a second. Because I don't think we've ever had an election with candidates who understand freedom more differently. For Donald Trump and his cronies, freedom means that the powerful can do whatever they please. Fire workers for trying to organize a union. Dodge paying their fair share of taxes. Try to throw out your votes when they lose an election. Control what women can and can't do with their bodies. In other words, for Trump, freedom is getting away with stuff. It's like he said in the middle of the pandemic. I don't take any responsibility at all. People were dying. I don't take any responsibility at all. Not sure any other president has ever uttered that statement. We have a broader idea of freedom. We believe in the freedom to provide for our families if we're willing to work. The freedom to breathe clean air and drink clean water and send our kids to school without worrying if they come home. We believe that true freedom gives each of us the right to make decisions about our own life, how we worship, who we marry, what our family looks like.
All right, former President Obama giving some remarks in Pittsburgh, of course, Pennsylvania, an all-important battleground state as we make our way closer to November 5th. A couple of breaking news scenes that we want to hit in a couple minutes here. We do have to take a commercial break. We're going to bring you some top headlines out of Los Angeles and the Houston metro when we return. Welcome back and live now. A couple of breaking stories we want to hit as we move through the evening here. Some breaking news out of Fox 26. They're our partner in Houston. They say that the city of Pasadena has stated on social media that there was a hydrogen sulfide release that occurred at a Pemex Deer, and the Pasadena Fire Department has issued a shelter in place for all areas north of Spencer Highway in the Pasadena city limits. Authorities on scene of this situation, details very limited at this time, according to officials. We do have a look at the scene as well. You see the response, and this is as you can see, quite the response from emergency officials in the area. Of course, we got to also say, we just got this into the newsroom, that the local officials there have completed air monitoring, and the shelter in place that had been put in place in the area has been lifted. So we wanted to make sure we got you that out of the Houston area today. We also are hearing of some breaking news out of the LA area as well. This is some scenes from Interstate 5, the 5 freeway in East Los Angeles. And what we're hearing is that the whole side of that freeway there has been shut down. According to CHP, there was an incident there that happened along the surface streets, not on the freeway, that led to a crash and 3 suspects taking off from the crime scene in the northbound lanes of the 5 near South Grande Vista Avenue in Boyle Heights. 1 person was shot. 3 people remain on the run, according to Fox 5 LA. Officials did not give the health condition of the person shot. Again, preliminary details about this situation in LA. Anytime we see a situation like this in Los Angeles where they close down one of these major arteries, it is a big deal, to say the least. I want to also just mention that we are still tracking details out of another story. And yeah, you see the shooting, shutting down the freeway in East LA there. Police crews working to comb through the area and assess what they can there in that situation. So we wanted to make sure we got that into you. We are going to take a commercial break. We're going to be continuing on with our coverage of Milton and the damage that the storm has brought. We, of course, have been watching these scenes on your screen for the past couple hours or so. The damage is being assessed. Recovery efforts are beginning, and we're going to be talking about another big angle of this whole thing, which is the power outages. Officials with Duke Energy in Florida joining us after a quick 2-minute commercial break. Welcome back in Live Now. I'm Austin Westfall. We, of course, have been tracking Milton and its impacts. We are seeing some of the power outages still affecting some of these major communities. We are joined by Melissa Seixas. She is the president of Duke Energy there in Florida. And I just want to say thank you again, Melissa, for joining us here and giving us some vital updates. And really, this is what we turn to after the storm, is the recovery efforts. What can you report as of this hour?
Good to be with you again this evening. So as of about 8 o'clock this evening, we have approximately 929,000 customers without power. That's out of our 2 million customers that we serve across Florida, over 35 counties. About 425 of those customers are off in Pinellas County, which really bore the brunt of Milton when it made landfall just to the south of us in Tampa Bay. So we have spent today conducting damage assessment, beginning restoration on critical facilities like hospitals, nursing homes, lift stations, water treatment plants, those kinds of things. And then tomorrow we'll make great progress. We will issue an estimated time of restoration for our customers who are without service. And that's a really important milestone in this process, especially for our customers, so that they can plan around knowing when the power will be back on. So we are glad to be able to reach that point tomorrow where we will provide that information.
So, and we're kind of just looking at a map here that gives us a rough idea of where some of these clusters of outages are. Are there any parallels to be drawn between the recovery efforts with this storm and what you guys just went through with Helene?
These storms are different in a lot of ways. Helene, of course, made landfall up in Taylor County in the Big Bend area. That had been the third storm in 13 months that area had sustained. And then it did create quite a bit of storm surge down along the coast, all the way down in Pinellas County, and really had a significant impact on the barrier islands of Pinellas County. And a lot of that effort in that restoration was around replacing underground facilities that had become, completely saturated by the storm surge from that particular storm. Milton, of course, had built up to a Category 5 even as it approached landfall and decreased in power. The wind field became even wider. And of course, it came in on the Gulf side, went right across the state, right through several counties that we serve, all the way out into the Atlantic. So it literally went from one highly urban area, the Tampa Bay area, out through the Central Florida area, which includes places like Orlando, Orange County. So we knew going into this storm, we knew that we would probably have upwards of about 1 million customers off based on modeling, based on the weather reports that we were getting. So different aspects, different characteristics of the storm and the impact to our customers, but nonetheless, still very impactful to our customers, especially those, 2 storms and within 2 weeks. It's a lot to take.
We were asking last night, we were speaking with you guys in the overnight hours, just a couple hours after the landfall was made, and there was a big question as to when linemen would be able to actually get out there and start getting things back online. At what point were people starting to be dispatched?
So right around sunrise, when it was safe enough, when the winds had died down, there were still some gusts that were above the 40-mile-per-hour level, and we do not send our crews out when it's over 39. So once those winds had died down, especially on the Gulf Coast, because that's where the storm went through initially, we were able to get damage assessment out, not just people on the ground assessing damage, but also we use drones and helicopters, especially for transmission infrastructure, because those poles and structures are much taller. So helicopter gives us a better view there. And at the same time, we had crews who were out restoring service. I'm here in our distribution control center behind me. There are dispatchers who are dispatching outages and working with field personnel to safely and quickly restore service.
Are these, and when we talk about linemen, we always hear about people from other jurisdictions coming in to help with major events like this. Are these Florida-based responders, or are these people coming from other jurisdictions as well?
It's a combination. Certainly our Florida Duke Energy crews are here. We also have what we call native contractors, who are contractors that work with us on a lot of our investments and even storm response. And then we have contractors from out of the country, or I'm sorry, out of the state, but then also other utilities through mutual agreement, mutual assistant agreements. So it's a real diverse work group of people, because when you face these kinds of natural disasters, you really have to kind of cast a wide net. And that's exactly what we've done to ensure that we have the right resources here.
All right. How much more work is there to be done? I know that's a tough question. That's a big question, but how much is left, Melissa?
Well, that's where the estimated time of restoration will be released tomorrow. We'll spend tomorrow really fine-tuning that. And we may end up having one estimated time of restoration for one particular county and something different for another, just based on the magnitude and the type of damage that we have seen. But that information will come out tomorrow afternoon.
All right, Melissa Satius with Duke Energy in Florida. We appreciate your time. Take care.
Thank you.
Let's slide away for a break. We're back in 2 minutes. Welcome back. We have been showing these images on your screen as well throughout the evening. And of course, the story here is a bizarre one. This is in Colorado. We've been hearing that there was some sort of accident at a mine. One person killed, 12 people trapped in a gold mine in Colorado. People underground right now, rescuers trying to get to them deep beneath the surface. This was a former Colorado gold mine that's been turned into a tourist site. You're looking at aerial images right now. We also heard from officials on the ground who gave us an update about what exactly happened here.
I also want to say thank you to Jared Polis, to our governor. He called probably within 10 minutes of our initial call Senator Baisley happened to be with us for a hearing, offering anything he could. And so they are obviously the experts. In the end, the decision will probably be our incident commanders, and we take that very seriously too. So, and then as far as the mental health piece of it, just to reiterate that, our public health department is down there right now. There are some children involved. So there's lots that's going on, but there's a lot of stuff on social media. I'd ask for you just to ignore that, get your information here, and I appreciate you guys covering the story. Senator Baisley, sir?
Yeah, thank you. My name is Mark Baisley. I'm honored to represent all of Teller County. Really, a lot of this area around here. Yeah, just happened to be right down the street here in Cripple Creek in a meeting with the county commissioners, all three of them, and when we received this news. I chair the Emergency Management Sustainability Task Force, so our goal is to try to make sure that when we call on these folks, because we all expect it, don't we? We dial 911 when there's an emergency, and we expect the right kind of people to show up with the right equipment and well-trained and to get there fast. And we saw that today. And I want to extend a big applause and thank you to Sheriff Mike Seld, because look what he is doing here, responding immediately and organizing and commanding this event, and all the emergency crew that came from across the state. So yes, and a big thanks to Governor Polis, who was with us immediately and committed some resources as well. So thanks to all of them. They're doing a great job. Let's just keep all those family members in our prayers, because if you're down there 1,000 feet and wondering what's going on, right now is a good time to lift them up. Thank you.
Absolutely. And Sheriff, one last thing. You talked about how you would like to have the elevator operational again to get these people out. You said that you do have a plan B and you do have a plan C. Can you go into that if that were the circumstances of you guys would have to kind of shift?
Yep.
What
so
that would look like?
We do have Colorado Springs Fire Department here. They're 1,000 feet down. That means it's a long rope trip, right? If we have to, we can bring people up on those ropes, but it also subjects those first responders now to the threat and endangerment of doing so, because, you know, it's still, you're dropping a long ways in a tunnel, right? So we want to make sure the tunnel's safe. We want to make sure the shaft is in good order. We want to make sure all those things are working well. My druther is that we get everybody up through the elevator system, right? Because sitting in a harness from 1,000 feet down coming up is not easy. So that's our plan B. Plan C they're working on. I'm going to get a briefing on it here shortly. But that's really where we're at. We believe that the elevator will be intact and able to do so, but I want to make sure it's perfectly safe before we do so. And once that happens, then we'll be able to bring them up. And I'll be honest with you, I want to give you all the pertinent information and what you need so that you have everything. So as soon as we have more information, we'll call another one of these so that you can get that. My hope that we can get all the people down in the shaft that are really going on, and then I can explain to them what actually occurred, because you know, they really don't have an idea that we have more of an issue up top than what they're being told is the elevator. And really that's because I want to keep people calm, because I can't get them out until I can get something down there, right?
And how many people who are down there are who work in the mine or are familiar with it?
We have one person from the family mining operation that's down there with them, keeping everyone calm. And what I'm told is that's a former mine rescue personnel, so he has some knowledge about these things. So really what his job is right now is just to keep people calm.
Yeah, and how are you communicating with them?
So we have communication down in the bottom through radios.
Okay.
So we're hearing and they'll let us know if something's occurring, but that's really where we're at right now.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Just really quick, I just wanted to clarify. So you said there were 2 miners. Are they a part of the groups that's been rescued? Do you know if there's any others as far as that are down there still?
So again, this is a tourism industry.
Sure.
They're not miners. These are folks like you and I that go down there to see what's happening in a real mine, to get an experience. So that's why they're down there at this point. But thank you for the question so I could clarify.
No, I think I was just a slip of tongue. I know they're obviously tourists. I guess it was a question he asked earlier. There was the 2 children. So those are already people that are out.
They're already out, yes. Okay. And I will tell you, because we've seen a lot on social media that there's a report that the mine has collapsed. That is not the case, right? The mine has not collapsed. It is stable at this point for what we know. So if I find out differently, I'll be more than happy to get you that information.
Real quick, how did you get those initial 11 up?
Running through the elevator system.
Okay.
We don't know, though, because of the damage that the elevator sustained, whether that would contribute to something failing again. So that's one of the reasons we want to make sure that the engineers and the state is sending us an elevator expert to identify if the elevator's safe. So that's really where we're at with it.
Cool.
And again, to clarify, the Colorado Springs Fire Department is already down at the bottom currently?
No.
Okay.
So there's no one else down at the bottom because we don't want to risk moving anything or putting something in an environment that we're not quite sure of yet, right? So once I get that information, we'll be able to move forward with more information for you, but really to hopefully move people out of that area. Yeah. All right, thank you. Folks.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you, sir.
All right, that's what we've heard so far from officials in Colorado about that bizarre incident at a former gold mine turned tourist attraction. We also have another breaking story that we want to bring you. These are live images out of the Houston Metro. We're learning from our affiliate Fox 26 in the area. This is in Deer Park, Texas. Authorities on the scene following an incident at Shell Pemex Deer Park, authorities saying. Details at the time, very limited, but according to an organization in the area, CAER, activities are being performed that may cause flaring, they say. Harris County Sheriff Ed Gonzalez saying that preliminary information indicates that an unknown chemical release has occurred. This is a live image that we're working with, and sometimes shots can be obscured. We've seen a number of ambulances either coming in or out. It's tough to tell right now, but we do know that at least one person, sadly, has been confirmed dead due to whatever has happened here. You see one of those ambulances appearing to drive away from the scene. Another person was taken by life flight. I'm guessing that's a medevac type of service there. So a shelter in place had been issued for the city of Pasadena as a result of this incident. A social media post by the city saying that a hydrogen sulfide release occurred at the facility, and the Pasadena Fire Department had issued a shelter in place at the time for all areas north of Spencer Highway in the Pasadena city limits. However, the shelter in place as of now has been lifted for Pasadena. The city of Deer Park has issued a shelter in place for all Deer Park residents, however. So this situation still developing, officials urging anyone in the area to go inside, close all windows and their doors, turn off the air conditioner units until an all clear is given by the Ready Pasadena alert system and by social media. We're learning more about this from officials in the area and from Fox 26 Houston. We do know that we have a rally in Chandler, Arizona. This is going to be a Kamala Harris rally. We do know that she's expected to take to the podium within the next hour or two. Sometimes these things can run a little late, so we'll be sure to bring you those remarks as soon as she does step up to the podium. We believe the person speaking right now is somebody who is a field worker, one of those people who blitzes to the streets and goes door to door helping these campaigns do what they got to do. It's time for us to take a break here at Live Now. We're back in 2 minutes. Welcome back. I'm Austin Westfall. Let's take a look at this rally in Chandler, Arizona. Chandler is in the Phoenix Metro. This is a live image you're looking at. We've been seeing a number of people taking to the podium. We saw a field worker for the Harris Walls campaign who was just stepping up to the podium. A number of people. Sometimes we hear from local officials, local politicians, senators, things of these nature. They come up and they speak ahead of the candidates. What's interesting about this particular event, though, this isn't just going to be a Kamala Harris event. Both Harris and Walls will be appearing together. It's not every rally that we see that happen. Harris is scheduled to appear at this rally, and we do know that Arizona Democratic Representative Ruben Gallego and actor Jamie Camel will also be in attendance at this rally. Again, this is being held in the Phoenix Metro, Arizona, one of the all-important battleground states that we're going to be tracking closely leading up to November 5th. Former President Trump, Harris's opponent, is scheduled to hold a rally in Prescott Valley on October 13th. Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance, was also in Arizona today, or on Wednesday, where he appeared at multiple campaign events. We will bring you, as we do here on Live Now, from now until November 5th, we will be bringing you all of the Big Four's speeches live and in full with no commercial interruptions. That means anytime Harris, Walls, Trump, or Vance, and you see that vice presidential seal now officially being placed in front of the podium, that's getting the crowd fired up. We will bring you Walls and Harris's remarks as soon as they step out. In the meantime, though, let's pivot back to a little bit of our Milton coverage. In fact, let's listen in to the latest update from Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Again, we'll bring it back out to the Phoenix area as soon as we hear that either Walls or Harris is stepping out.
In Lucey County because of one of the tornadoes, and these things are really tough. And we did see tornadoes, which is standard with these hurricanes, but you saw the tornadoes, and they did do some significant damage, even all the way over on the east coast of Florida. We've also been able to tour. We did a driving tour of Siesta Key, was able to see some of the damage that was out there. Also saw what appeared to me to be some of the leftover debris from Helene that was, out in the street or whatnot. So we got a sense of what's going on there. Then, of course, here, we're here looking. I mean, there's damage behind me with some of these. Honestly, for the mobile home stuff, I thought there would be more roofs. So some of these mobile homes, I mean, they've done a lot better in Florida over the years. We flew in over a number of the communities as well. There were definitely some roofs that were really bad, but then there were others that did really well. Another thing I think I can say just by doing our tour with like Siesta Key, I mean, our buildings that were built, in the last 20, 30 years, I mean, they did very well. They look good. There was obviously damage. There were trees. Some of the structures were damaged. But, you have some of those newer homes that are built with a more updated building code. They seem to fare very well. So we'll see as the damage assessments come in and as the reports. Now, we have at the state level, we're continuing supporting search and rescue operations. As of this afternoon, at least 340 individuals and 49 pets have been rescued. Florida National Guard, Florida law enforcement, and urban search and rescue teams are continuing to work throughout the day. We've got a lot of rescue craft operational. Hundreds of rescuers are engaged in over 125 missions in 26 counties. Some of that's in conjunction with the local law enforcement and fire and other first responders. I know a lot of the sheriffs are doing a lot of good work. This storm came in the way it did. The dirty side of the storm was kind of Sarasota, Charlotte area. And then the northern side of the storm, it actually, instead of doing storm surge into Tampa Bay, it sucked it out. But the northern side of the storm had a lot of precipitation. I mean, they were just getting water dumped on them. So whereas Helene created a lot of storm surge in that part of the state, this one didn't do that there, but it created like inland flooding. And you're going to, so you see that in Pinellas and Hillsborough counties. You also got an awful lot of water dumped in the center and northern parts of the state on the northern side of the storm. So we're going to continue to respond for those as appropriate. Power. So as of the 3 p.m. update, we've got 3.2 million that are without power, 3.2 million accounts throughout the state of Florida. Since the storm hit, 880,000 have been restored. So we've basically had a storm that's had over 4 million power outages. I think that's probably similar to what we saw with Hurricanes Irma and Hurricanes Ian. And I know but on this one, we have 50,000 linemen. We had probably 40-some thousand for Ian. I don't think they had them pre-staged for Irma, but we've got over 50,000 linemen. So they are hard at work. I know this area is FPL. I know they're planning a big push. So we feel very confident that those folks are working very hard, and you're going to see some good stuff here in the ensuing time period. Sarasota County, where we are now, is about 66% out as we speak. Prior to landfall here in Sarasota, we staged thousands of sandbags, 9 high water vehicles, 3 high wheeled vehicles for search and rescue, 12 emergency sat phones, 4 urban search and rescue teams, and 2 swiftwater teams. And now we are continuing to help with 25 additional generators, 3 swamp buggies, FWC search and rescue boats, 3 mobile command vehicles, 4 ambulance strike teams, 4,000 gallons of diesel, 4,000 gallons of regular unleaded, 5 helicopters, additional Starlinks, 20 diesel trash pumps, and additional supplies like tarps, fans, and dehumidifiers. Cut and toss began at first light by the Florida Department of Transportation. We have 328 crews active in the field, over 350 pieces of heavy equipment, 150 bridge inspectors were dispatched immediately, and over 620 bridges have already been inspected. As I said in my executive order for Hurricane Milton, local authorities must allow residents back to their homes once the roadways are deemed safe. In Tampa, the Sunshine Skyway, Gandy, Howard Franklin, and Courtney Campbell causeways have all been inspected, cleared, and they are open for traffic. Bridges are being opened as soon as state inspections are complete. There are a couple bridges throughout other parts of the state where they are looking at different issues. I-4, I-75, Alligator Alley are all clear and they're all open. US 1 and A1A have been cleared with the exception of A1A at Matanzas Avenue and Butler Beach. That's over on the other coast. Assessing a few areas where damage has occurred along roadways and bridges, such as washouts and flooding. That is continuing to go. There have been 5,000 traffic signals. 280 signals in the state are not currently operational. They're working to deploy generators to get those back up. If you come to a traffic light that is out, you treat it like a 4-way stop. So just remember, that's how people are going to do. So if you're going, you got to stop, look like you would on a stop sign. There are many schools closed today, but we're working with the Department of Education as schools resume as quickly as possible across the state, and that's going to be a little bit different depending on how you were affected by the storm. But I think the majority of those school districts that were closed probably had minimal to no impacts from the storm and should be able to resume operations very quickly. If you want to look to see what your school district's plans are, you can go to fldoe.org/storm-info. Now, please remember, as you survey damage and you clean up, be cautious of any downed power lines. They can be deadly. Do not touch them and stay away from any debris that may be tangled within the power lines. Be careful of standing water. You know, we are Siesta Key. I was able to soothe. I mean, there's some. It's gone down, but there is some. There's going to be some inland flooding. Just be very careful when you're talking about standing water. There could be power lines down in there. There could be other hazards, and that could cause major problems. Be careful when you use ladders. We always have injuries and sometimes even fatalities based on the use of ladders. We've got a lot of elderly residents. We have different groups that will be in Florida that will help you with some of these things. These charity groups, these church groups, they go in to help people with their homes and help clean up debris. So utilize that. Don't put yourself at risk. If you operate a generator, do not operate your generator inside your home. It must be operated outside your home. We still have Visit Florida's emergency accommodation modules on Expedia and Priceline available if people need temporary shelter. For another 2 weeks, we have extended the Hope Florida line. So that's going to be 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if you need help or you need some resources, like maybe helping hand with some things around your house or maybe some things with some supplies, you know, we've got all these organizations that come to help in the subsequent to these storms. They're all plugged into Hope Florida. So you can call 1-833-GET-HOPE, 1-833-GET-HOPE, and Activate Hope is the disaster arm for Hope Florida, and that is up and running. We also have small business loans available. So we have $50 million. It's interest-free, very forgiving payment options. So if you need cash as a business, you can apply for up to $50,000. If you're agriculture and aquaculture, you have up to $100,000, and if you're citrus and cattle, you have up to $150,000. So please take advantage if you want. If you want to apply for that, you go to floridajobs.org/EBL. We also are accepting donations for the Florida Disaster Fund. This is a charitable, tax-deductible donation. 100% of the proceeds go to helping victims of both Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton. And so if you want to do that, you can go to floridadisasterfund.org, floridadisasterfund.org. I want to thank everybody who's worked really hard. We're still assessing the damage from this storm. I mean, I think clearly just going around that there was damage from it. I think in some areas, in terms of what was being predicted, some of the worst case scenarios did not come to pass, certainly in terms of some of the storm surge. People were predicting perhaps in the Tampa Bay area. The storm did weaken as it made landfall. And so whereas it was churning ferociously off the Yucatan Peninsula, by the time it made it to the coast of Florida, those winds were a little bit tamer. Still enough to do a lot of damage, but in terms of our assessments and being able to bounce back, you know, I feel confident we're going to do that as a state. This power restoration effort is underway by all the major utilities. They've had the people ready, and they know that this is something that's really important. So you've got a lot of people working on that. We're very confident on reopening the ports like Tampa to make sure that fuel is continuing to flow. We have a lot of fuel in reserve in the state if we need to fill any gaps. But I'm confident we're going to be able to have an adequate amount of fuel delivered to the gas stations one way or another. If we need to use Florida Highway Patrol to help rush the trucks there, then we'll do that. But we should be in pretty good shape as far as that goes. So I want to thank everybody that's been involved. And we'll be putting out information about things like points of distribution for food and water. We're taking some of those inputs from some of the counties. I mean, some people said before the storm they wanted pods. You know, maybe they don't need pods now, depending on what damage. But we do anticipate when the counties are ready, rolling out some of the pods and providing some of the resources in terms of food, water, and other supplies like tarps for people as they may need it. So, okay, Kevin Guthrie.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you for everything you do for communities like these to make our job much easier and much more successful. Before I get started, you know, there's a lot of people here that I want to thank that are the partners of the State Emergency Response Team. And as I look around here from right to left, we got the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, Florida Highway Patrol, the Florida National Guard, members of the federal and state USAR task forces that are in here, local sheriff's offices. These men and women, you know, went through the storm to get to you to be able to help you. And we certainly appreciate everything that they do. Even though Hurricane Milton has exited the east coast of Florida, storm surge is still expected along the east coast. Major flooding continues along Hillsborough, St. Johns, and the Little Wekiva rivers, and water levels are forecast to continue rising, not going down. They're forecast to continue rising through those areas. Residents in these areas should continue to shelter in place until officials deem it safe to go outside. Roadways are flooded, and the potential for hazardous conditions with them still exists. Please do not walk or drive through them under any circumstances. 6 inches of moving water can knock a person over, and 1 foot of moving water can sweep you away in your vehicle. Accidents due to floodwaters are preventable. All you got to do is just stay out of them. Right now, our teams are in the field working in parallel over the next 72 hours to do 3 things. That is to search, secure, and stabilize the areas from getting any worse. As these search and rescue missions continue to respond, as we continue to respond to Milton, please do not go out and visit impacted areas. You are inhibiting first responders by doing so. Listen to local authorities for updates on when it is safe. If you are sheltered in place or you're now returning home and you are outside, one of the first things you should do is document your damages. Make sure that you take a picture of all 4 sides of the outside of your home. When you go inside, make sure you take pictures in each and every room and have a point of reference like an electrical socket or a doorknob. That gives us reference to know how high the water was inside your home if you indeed had water intrusion. If you have lost power and want to use a generator as a backup, please use it safely. Generator accidents are also 100% preventable. Make sure you put it on a flat, dry surface at least 20 feet away from all doors and windows. Make sure you wait 20 minutes when you refuel, and then keep a carbon monoxide detector in your home so that the fumes and odorless fumes can be deadly, and then you'll be able to be warned about those. If you are beginning your cleanup process, please ensure you are wearing the appropriate safety gear. But as the governor has already mentioned, we will send volunteer organizations into your communities that will help you clean this up. They will help you get trees off. They will help you do stuff with the roof and re-tarp them. You do not have to do that if you're on your own, if you're by yourself, if you have some physical capability that limits you in going up and down a ladder. All of those are preventable injuries. Just call us, 1-833-GET-HOPE. We will put you into the system, and we will get people to come to you and help you with that. Do not cut any lines. I cannot say this enough. Every disaster, we end up having somebody cut either a coax cable or a fiber optic cable. That is your lifeline to 911 services. Please do not cut lines. Let somebody else come in and do the cutting for you. If you see a dangerous situation, make sure you call your local authorities and report it so that they can come out and mitigate it. For assistance after the storm, for information, please call 1-800-342-3577. I'm sorry, that's a correction. 1-800-342-3557. Help is available in English, Spanish, and Haitian Creole. You can always visit floridadisaster.org/updates for more information in real time. The best way to follow us and get those updates is follow us on X and Instagram at FLSERT and on Facebook at FDEM for, again, real-time updates. Governor, thank you so much. Appreciate your cooperation and assistance.
Florida officials earlier today in Sarasota. We're going to pick this up where we're leaving it in 2 minutes. Welcome back. I'm Austin Westfall. Live look at the Harris Walls rally expected to take place any moment now in Chandler, Arizona. In fact, I see somebody walking up to the podium. I'm curious who this is. Let's listen in here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gerardo Ramirez. I'm from Eloy, Arizona, and I'm a trustee and steward for Teamsters Local 104. And I'm a registered Republican. My great-grandfather was a farmer and a migrant worker here in Arizona. And my grandfather on my mother's side came to America in 1956 to work in agriculture on railroads, also known as the Bracero program. I come from a long line of hard workers, and I know firsthand how important unions are for workers and working families. I am here today to support Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz, and make sure that everyone in the state of Arizona and across the country knows that Teamster Local 104 of Arizona has proudly endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz. Because we know who stands with workers and who doesn't. And I suggest that any other worker, union or non-union, get behind Kamala Harris, because she is the leader that will fight for workers and working families. Vice President Kamala Harris has led, alongside President Joe Biden, the most pro-union administration in history. She has been an unwavering champion for workers her entire career. Folks like me, we keep America running. And we deserve a leader who will fight for us. Vice President Harris is committed to workers and making sure we live in a country that works for everyone, not just a few. It is clear for me that if you're for workers and your families, Kamala Harris is the only option in this election. So let's remember, when we fight, we win. Thank you. Now, it is my distinct privilege to introduce a champion of workers and the next president of the United States of America, Kamala Harris.
Vice President Harris coming out to a rally in the battleground state of Arizona. This rally taking place in Chandler, which is in the Phoenix Metro. Harris and her running mate Tim Walz have made a number of swings through the Grand Canyon State in recent weeks. Let's listen in.
Okay, come on. Come on, we got some work to do. We got some work to do. We got some work to do. All right, we got some work to do. Well, let me just say, it is good to be back in Arizona. And thank you all. There are so many. This is an extraordinary group of leaders, and I thank you all for the time that you have taken to be together, for us to have this. I love you back. I want to thank Governor Lewis of the Gila River Indian community and all the elected leaders here today. Representative Gallego, who could not be with us, but Arizona, let's send him to the United States Senate. And let's send former Navajo Nation President Jonathan Nez to the United States Congress. And let me say, it means so much to be back with the Gila River Indian community. Last summer, I became the first Vice President of the United States to visit this tribal nation. And I strongly believe that the relationship between tribal nations and the United States is sacred, and that we must honor tribal sovereignty, embrace our trust and treaty obligations, and ensure tribal self-determination. And it is my promise as President of the United States, I will defend those principles always. And before I continue, I will say a few words about Hurricane Milton, which has cut a path of devastation across Florida and follows closely, of course, on the heels of the damage caused by Hurricane Helene to communities across the Southeast. I know, as you do, that our heart goes out to everyone who has been impacted by these storms. Our administration has mobilized thousands of federal personnel across the region to work hand in hand with local and state officials to give folks the help they need. I have spoken with state, local officials, both Republican and Democrat, to let them know we will be with you every step of the way as you recover and rebuild. That is who we are. That is who we are. So moving forward, let me say that Arizona, look, we have just 26 days until Election Day. 26 days. And we are nearing the home stretch. And this will be a very tight race until the very end. And we are the underdog. We are the underdog. So we have some hard work ahead of us, but we like hard work. Hard work is good work. And with your help, we will win. We will win. We will win. And y'all might have seen that just last night, Donald Trump officially ruled out any more debates. Now, I think it's a disservice to the voters. I also think it's a pretty weak move. But even if he will not debate, the contrast in this election is already clear. This election is about two very different visions for our nation. One, his, focused on the past, the other, ours, focused on the future. Including being focused on the issues that matter most to working families across America, like bringing down the cost of living, investing in small businesses and entrepreneurs. Do we have any small businesses in the house? Bless you. We believe in fighting to protect reproductive freedom. And we will always fight to keep our nation secure and honor our military service members. These and so many others are the issues that matter to you and your families, which is why you have taken the time out of your very busy lives to be here this evening. But that is not what we hear from Donald Trump. We don't hear about these issues. Instead, from Donald Trump, it's the same old tired playbook. He has no plans for how he would address the needs of the American people. He is only focused on himself. Well, folks, it's time to turn the page. It's time to turn the page. And America is ready for a new way forward. For a new, optimistic generation of leadership for our country. Which is why Democrats, Republicans, and independents are supporting our campaign. Because they know we need a president who works for all the American people. All the American people, because we know we have so much more in common than what separates us. And we are exhausted with those who would try and have us as Americans point fingers at each other. We're tired of that. And fighting on behalf of the American people has been the story of my entire career. I've only had in my career one client, the people. As a young courtroom prosecutor, I stood up for women and children against predators. As Attorney General of California, I took on the big banks, delivered $20 billion for middle-class families who faced foreclosure. I stood up for veterans and students being scammed by the the big for-profit colleges. I stood up for workers being cheated out of their wages. I stood up for seniors facing elder abuse, and it is my pledge to you as President of the United States, I will always fight for all the American people. Together, we will build a brighter future for our nation. A future where we build, for example, what I call an opportunity economy, where everyone has the ability to compete and have a real chance to succeed. Under my economic plan, we will bring down the cost of housing. Arizona, you know that's an issue we need to deal with. We will help first-time home buyers with their down payment, with $25,000 down payment assistance. We will help entrepreneurs start and grow small businesses, knowing you are the backbone of America's economy. We will expand health care in a way that makes Medicare cover home health care for seniors. Because we know it's just not right that people have to spend down all their money to qualify for Medicaid to be able to take care of what is basically about dignity when it comes to home health care. It's about dignity. And so part of my plan is to recognize you who are members of what we call the sandwich generation, who are taking care of your young children and your parents at the same time. Knowing what that does in terms of the emotional, the physical, the mental burden that you are carrying, just trying to take care of your family. And we need to have policies in our country that see you and lift you up, knowing it is a matter of dignity and just what is right. We will lower the cost on everything from health care to groceries, taking on, for example, the issue of corporate price gouging. I've done it before, and I'm going to do it again. We will give a tax cut to 100 million Americans, including $6,000 during the first year of your child's life to help you be able to buy a crib or a car seat or all the things you need at that critical stage of your child's development. And all of this is to say, I will always put middle-class families first. I come from the middle class. I come from the middle class. And I will never forget where I come from. Now, Donald Trump has a different plan. Just Google Project 2025. And I continue to say, I can't believe they put that in writing. You know, they published it, they bound it, and they handed it out. They're out of their minds. And it is a detailed, dangerous blueprint for what he will do if he is elected president again. Donald Trump will give billionaires and corporations massive tax cuts. Cut Social Security and Medicare is what he would do. And impose what I call a Trump sales tax, a 20% tax on everyday goods and necessities, which will cost, the economists have said, the average American family nearly $4,000 more a year. On top of this, Donald Trump intends to end the Affordable Care Act. Now, Arizona, Donna, I was a member of the United States Senate during that time, when he was president and kept trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. And I'm going to tell you about one particular night, which has a direct connection to all of you. So that one night, it was late in the night. They were trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act again, and it required one more vote to keep it intact. And that vote was the late, great John McCain. A great American, a war hero, John McCain. And I'll never forget that night. So we're all standing in the chamber, and we're waiting. And then, you know, in the Senate chamber, there are these big wooden doors. And it was like out of a movie. The wooden doors broke open. And John McCain came walking into the well of the United States Senate and said, "No, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't." But Donald Trump is trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act still. And here's the thing. He has no plan to replace it. Oh, you watched the debate. You watched the debate. So remember, he's got, quote, concepts of a plan. Concepts. Okay, so let's think about that. You know, I've said, because it's true, he is an unserious man. And the consequences of him ever being president again are brutally serious. Because think about this, concept of a plan. So he's basically going to threaten the health insurance of 45 million Americans based on a concept. And take us back then to what? To the time when insurance companies had the power to deny people with pre-existing conditions? Well, we are not going back. We are not going back. We are not going back. We're not going back. No, because we will move forward. Because ours is a fight for the future, and it is a fight for freedom. Like the fundamental freedom of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. And we remember how we got here. Donald Trump, when he was president, hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo Roe. And they did as he intended, and now more than 1 in 3 women in America lives in a state with a Trump abortion ban, including, right here in Arizona, 3.5 million women. And many of these bans, like the one in this state, have no exceptions even for rape and incest. It is immoral. And I know we all know one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government should not be telling her what to do. Not the government. If she chooses, she'll talk with her priest or her pastor or her rabbi or her imam, but not the government. So Arizona, we need to fight this battle on every front, and in this election, you have the chance on the state level to vote yes on Proposition 139 and protect your right to make your own health care decisions. And then, when Congress passes a bill to restore reproductive freedom nationwide, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But look, in addition to that, you know, I'm traveling around the country and across our nation, guys, we are witnessing a full-on attack on hard-won, hard-fought freedoms and rights, fundamental freedoms and rights, like the freedom to vote, the freedom to be safe from gun violence, the freedom to love who you love openly and with pride, and the freedom to breathe clean air and drink clean water. A topic that looms large here in Arizona, and I know that topic well. I worked on drought resilience for years and helped secure historic resources for communities across the West to invest in water infrastructure, water recycling, and water storage. And I promise you, as president, I will continue to invest in drought resilience so that communities like those across Arizona have what you need to thrive. So look, so much is on the line in this election, 26 days to go. And this is not 2016 or 2020. The stakes are even higher because, remember, a few months ago, the United States Supreme Court told the former president he is effectively immune from whatever he does in office. Now, because you all know, just imagine Donald Trump with no guardrails. He who has vowed if he were reelected, he'd be a dictator on day one, who will weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies, and who has called for the, quote, termination of the Constitution of the United States of America. And let us be clear. Someone who suggests we should terminate the Constitution of the United States should never again stand behind the seal of the President of the United States of America. Never again. Never again. Never again. So it all comes down to this. Generations of Americans before us have led the fight for freedom, and now the baton is in our hands. The baton is now in our hands because we here know what is at stake, and we love our country. We love our country. We love our country. And I do believe one of the highest forms of patriotism and one of the highest forms then of patriotism, of the expression of our love of our country, is to fight for the ideals of our country and to fight to realize the promise of America. So the election is in 26 days. Here in Arizona, early voting has already started statewide. You can cast your ballot today or any day between now and November 5th. So now is the time to make your plan to vote. And if you have received your ballot in the mail, please do not wait. Fill it out today, return it in today. I think some of you have. Because, folks, the election is here. The election is here, and we've got to energize and organize and mobilize. And please, let's always remember, your vote is your voice, and your voice is your power. And so, Arizona, I ask you, are you ready to make your voices heard? Do we believe in freedom? Do we believe in opportunity? Do we believe in the promise of America? And are we ready to fight for it? And when we fight, we win! God bless you, and God bless the United States.
Kamala Harris wrapping up in Chandler, Arizona, making a stop in Battleground State. Got two different angles, same event. I'll also mention that we do have, at this same time, for those that have been following along with these updates out of Colorado, and the fact that there are, at least there was 12 people still trapped underground as part of a mine accident. What used to be a Colorado gold mine turned horse traction. It was reported that one person was dead, 12 people trapped underground. We're awaiting an update from officials. This is a live image where we anticipate that update's going to start any moment now. We'll take this opportunity to take a commercial break. Hopefully we'll hear from these officials shortly. Welcome back. I'm Austin Westfall. I believe we're getting
I have good news.
I believe we're getting a live update from officials about that mine rescue. Let's listen live.
I'm confident to say that we really had a lot of good resources here from the state of Colorado. And with me is Dan Gibbs from the state of Colorado. This is Senator Mark Baisley. This is Commissioners Dan Williams, Eric Stone, and Bob Campbell. On behalf of all of us, our first responders worked tirelessly through the night, our firemen, our EMS. The state of Colorado, and speaking with the governor of Colorado, Jared Polis, he sent us as much needed personnel as we could get. That included folks that were able to make sure that the rescue operation dealing with the elevator system was working properly. So that took inspectors to make sure that the elevator is going to work properly. It took MSHAR, mine safety crews, and through all of that, we were able to put together a plan that worked. And that plan was to bring them up through the elevator system. We had other plans that were in place, and luckily we didn't have to use any of those. These folks, we did have a briefing with them to explain to them what was happening, because they were in this tunnel and didn't know that any of this was going on. So it was a shock to them to know that they were actually part of a national media thing that was going on. The one thing I will tell you too is that we still are speaking with the family of the person that was lost in this through a tragic accident, and just understand we'll give that information when we can. But I'd like to open it up to any questions you might have as to anything that we've done.
Sheriff, can you clarify any more injuries from the 12 being rescued out around 7 o'clock, and again, any more fatalities?
So there was no one else injured. They all came up very safely, 4 at a time, so we could get them through the surface. They're all in good spirits. We fed them pizza. That's what they wanted. There's a good news story at the end of this, and that's really what we were hoping for today, and our prayers are with, and just the trial that we were able to go through with the first responders to make sure this happened was great. I will tell you the mine owner was instrumental in making sure that equipment was able to get everyone up to the surface. So I just want to put my thanks out to him as well.
Is the body
Yes, ma'am.
of the deceased still in the mine?
No, ma'am. We've recovered the body of the person that was that died in the tragic accident, so we're taking care of that, yes.
Do you know what caused that initial mechanical failure that you talked about earlier today?
We're unsure at this time. It's going to take a full investigation to know what really went wrong. Accidents happen when you're dealing with this type of machinery. But when we have more, we'll give you more on that.
Are you able to explain then how you were able to get it back working?
Yes, ma'am. Up to the surface for the first group that was brought, because they were stuck halfway, right? We were able to get the engineers to look over it, make sure that there was no debris underneath it that would cause more of an issue. And we're able to check and make sure the cables and the housings were right. And so once they were able to identify that there were no other issues that could cause a problem with the equipment, they were able to lower it back down without anyone in it, and then bring it back up to make sure that it was going to run correctly. And then we decided on a plan to go ahead and do that, bring them back up. So, yes, ma'am.
So, Sheriff, you said that they were kind of unaware of what was all going on up here. What did the folks that worked down there at that 1,000-foot level, what exactly did they know was going on at the time?
What we told them at the time is that there was an elevator issue. Right? So they believed there was just an elevator issue, and there was. There was an issue with an elevator, and we didn't know what else. So in speaking with them afterwards, they were very thankful that we didn't tell them, because I think that would have caused a little more of an angst about how do we get out of here. So it went well.
How long were those 12 individuals down there?
I believe, I think we were about 6 hours now into this, so right around 6 hours.
Sheriff, can you describe the conditions down there? You know, we met with you earlier talking about the hopes to get them out tonight. What would it have been like, you know, as the temperature continues to drop down there, just working to get them out as quickly as possible?
Well, here's the thing. When you're in the earth that deep, your temperatures don't really change. So the biggest thing is they had water. I think if we'd have had this operation go longer, we would have been able to lower them something on a rope system. But thankfully, we didn't have to do that. So.
Can you say who was in the group? Like, were there adults? Were there children? Can you describe who was in that 12?
Yeah, this 12 were all adults. Yeah, and they're all people that came here from out of state to partake in a trip down to a mine to see what it was like. But they're all adults.
And are you able to say at this time how the person died? Was it related to the elevator malfunction?
I can tell you that it was related to a malfunction of the elevator or a tragic accident, right? There's not a lot more I can give you because I really don't know. I think the investigation will kind of give us our answers, but that's something that somebody that's a lot smarter than me is going to have to figure out how that thing works. So.
And Sheriff, the investigation into, you know, what happened with the mine, do we expect it to be closed for a period of time? I know it's seasonal operation, but what is it going to be like inspecting everything before it is reopened to the public and more people are sent back down?
You know, right now, I know that OSHA has to get involved, mine safety has to get involved. All those folks are going to be looking into how that works. I know that it was taken offline tonight, obviously, for those reasons, until they can find out for sure what is needed or if there is any other issues. This was actually the end of the season for this company that does this. So fortunately for them, it happened at the very end of the season. So my hope is that they'll be back up and running next year, but we'll see how this goes forward.
Sheriff, been a long day for your office. What is kind of your message to, the first responders from surrounding communities that came out to help?
Well, I'm glad you asked. And here's the thing. We had a rescue organization from Colorado Springs Fire Department who did an amazing job with a Plan B and a Plan C for me. We had the Cripple Creek Fire Department. We had ambulances from the Cripple Creek area. We've had state mine workers, state emergency management here with us, our emergency management, our deputies, our police departments from Cripple Creek, all of those folks working to make one plan that would ultimately get everybody out safely.
So was this the last day of the season, or it'll be shut down through the rest of this season?
I believe this weekend was the last day of their season, right, before they shut down for the winter. So,
can you talk about how the training of your emergency responders maybe contributed to the quicker recovery of these individuals?
Well, I think it's a big question because there's a lot of first responders coming in. There's a lot of state agencies coming in. And here's the thing, in Colorado, we train every day to make those decisions on first responders and safety and getting people to safety. And you saw it work. That's what I saw today. How often do you have a senator, you have the state of Colorado here, you've got commissioners here, they did an emergency declaration. We did everything that we possibly could to make sure they were safe. And at the end of the day, those plans worked, and people got up safely. And working with the owner, who was just as much of a first responder to this as we were, they did a great job in making sure people came to the surface alive and safe.
And Sheriff, I don't know if this is better for a commissioner, but just talking about, the family-owned company, last time this incident happened was a very long time ago. As you said, accidents happen, but the roots that this mine has in the community and continuing to bring in visitors from across the country.
Absolutely. Dan, you want to?
Yeah, thank you for that. So just to reiterate, our mayors were here earlier today. You saw the entire city council having Senator Basie here. We've got Director of Reclamation and Mining Safety. We've got Department of Natural Resources, Dan Gibbs. Thank you, sir. Governor's talked to us twice. He just talked to us